Beam me up, Scotty.
Anyone who's wearing a red shirt should duck.
I think I changed. So when's the beard come off, Kenneth?
When it reaches $1,000, we're up at 675 right now.
Oh,
it's
boy.
edging closer and closer. I guarantee you, if we break 1,000, then I think it'll be the first time you've ever seen me cry. I'm serious. I haven't lost this thing in a decade. I have not taken it off. I've nurtured and grown this puppy.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. It is welcome to our council meeting for November the 25th. We welcome all of you and thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your interest in your town. This evening, we're going to start by reconvening the council meeting of November the 11th, when we experienced some technical difficulty and with both our YouTube live stream and Zoom platforms. So council is going to start where we left off during the in-services AGM. Thankfully, we were most of the way through it at the time. And all of the items from that agenda will be added to tonight's regular council agenda meeting, which will open after the council finishes the outstanding businesses in the in-services AGM. I would like to let everyone know that staff has reviewed the issues experienced with Zoom on November the 11th and has taken several steps to ensure that we do not have our meeting interrupted like that again. We were certainly erring on the side of being open and making sure that the Zoom was available for everyone. And now we have put we've had further technical issues. So council has a new plan if that should happen again. So should we lose Zoom or should Zoom be interrupted in any way, council will recess for 10 minutes so that staff can identify and attempt to resolve the issue. If there is a problem with our live stream link, we may need to switch to a different live stream, and that link, the new link, will be provided on the opening page of the town's website and through social media, but it will be a live stream link and not a Zoom link. So we won't end up with the Zoom bombs. The town also posts a recording of our meetings on our YouTube channel as soon as it is available, which is usually about within 24 hours of the council meeting. So you can look for it tomorrow if you happen to miss any parts of tonight's meeting. So we will now reconvene the in-services AGM meeting of November the 11th, 2020, where we have already heard from Dr. George Chaperoux, who provided an update to county council members who are the shareholders and asked a number of questions. And I believe we were ready to vote on the motion before us. So I will, because I am a shareholder on in-services, I will now turn the chair over to the deputy mayor to conduct business to the end of the in-services AGM. Deputy Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, council, I think we have a recommendation before us. Do you want me to read it or just like to move forward and vote on it? Any questions? I can't see everybody, so. Okay, you're okay?
Councillor Rosati.
Oh, Councillor Rosati?
Sorry, our Deputy Davidson, just wondering, do we need a mover and seconder on this recommendation first?
Yes, we do. So can I get a mover? I'll just move back to my screen. Go back. Okay, mover is Councillor Van Berkel, Councillor Fowler. All in favor? Okay. A revised recommendation, and I just want to make sure Councillor Van Berkel is in there. Okay, we have a revised recommendation. Need a mover and a seconder. Kenneth, Councillor Waters, and I just need to get this to full screen. Councillor Payne. Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's moved. I get this over. That the consent list items for November 11, 2020 have been placed on the November 25th, 2020 council agenda for consideration. Do I need a mover on this, Mayor? No, so all in favor? Okay, that's moved. And the confirming bylaw, the bylaw number 100-20 being the confirming bylaw for the rescheduled regular council meeting held on November 11th, 2020, November 25th, 2020 be adopted. All in favor?
Mover and a seconder.
Oh, see, there I go. So, okay, a mover is Councillor Van Berkel. I've got to get my screen to show Councillor Waters. Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Okay. Okay, now a mover and a seconder. This meeting be adjourned. Councillor Fowler, Councillor Waters, I see there. Okay, all in favor? Okay, we're done. And there. Okay, thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for taking care of that. And welcome Councillor Van Berkel and resident Stuart Reese on the In-Services Board.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So now we will move into our Wednesday, November the 25th council meeting. And I'm going to just tell everyone that this meeting is being audio and video recorded and shall form part of the public record, which will be retained by the town's retention bylaw. And for more information on that bylaw, and we can see somebody's email up on the screen, and I probably think that's probably not what you want people to see if you want to take that down. There we go. Thank you. So if you want more information about the town's bylaw for recording, please let the clerk's office know and they will tell you about our records retention. So we did have one item that was added to tonight's agenda. Item F1, correspondence from Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in the Township of Essa, re-bill 229. And so that will be added to tonight's agenda. And I need a mover. I guess I'll wait for the screen to catch up to me here. Next slide, please. I'll get a mover and a seconder while we're waiting for that for the revised agenda. And that's moved by Councillor Ices and seconded by Councillor Nickel. All those in favor? That is carried. We'll just give staff a second to get the slideshow up. Is it possible we can get that so that we're seeing the slideshow as opposed to the added notes? And while that's happening, next item on the agenda is the open forum. And just before we move to open forum, and if I could please ask both for open forum and for our delegations tonight, if we could please be respectful to the time limits that are in our procedural bylaw. It's especially important for us tonight for a couple of reasons. A, we've got a very full agenda, but not only we've got tonight's agenda, but we've also got last November 11th agenda to get through too. So that would be 2 minutes or less for open forum, 10 minutes or less for the delegations. And I've asked the deputy clerk to help with the timing tonight. So when you see the deputy clerk turn her screen on, that will tell you to begin to wrap up. That means you have about 30 seconds left. So for open forum this evening, we'll start with our first open forum participant, which is Karen Forgrave. Ms. Forgrave, whenever you're ready. Please feel free to turn on your video and your audio at this time. And again, for all those participating, if you'd turn your video and your audio on when we call on you and then turn it off at the end, you're welcome to stay on the Zoom link for the remainder of the meeting if you'd care to, or you can exit whenever you like and then watch on YouTube or have the rest of the evening off, whatever you prefer. There's Miss Forgrave.
I am so sorry. I apologize. My computer has just rebooted and I have lost my notes. So if I could go later, if that's possible at all.
Sure. Okay. Why don't we do that?
So reloads for me. Thank you.
No trouble. Next is Sally Stanley. We all have those computer issues, that's for sure. So Ms. Stanley, whenever you're ready, you're welcome to start your 2 minutes.
Okay, I guess I'm on.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Council, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm talking about the rezoning issue at Innisfil Beach Road that's on the agenda tonight. I haven't enclosed a detailed commentary in the councillor packages, but most of my comments really are a summary of the Tate Economic Retail Market Commentary and Land Use Review that's in the back of the staff report. To summarize, the TARE report admits that the 2015 projections for commercial space requirements in Alcona were grossly overestimated, and that this estimate is not going to be realized going forward due to changes in consumer behavior that favor e-commerce over brick and mortar stores. So, so far, only a third of the estimated land has actually been developed. And so it begs the question as to whether it's prudent to proceed to rezone any more land for commercial development at this stage, because we still have a lot of undeveloped rezoned inventory readily available along Innisfil Beach Road. The TARE report also cautions us that it will take decades to achieve any successful development on these subject lands, and the report doesn't necessarily recommend it as the best location for it. It says we could do it, but as I read it, not that we should do it. In fact, it makes a pretty strong case against it if you consider what the report is saying about how retailers choose their locations and the criteria that are necessary to attract them. It's so, in my opinion, it's unfair to rezone prematurely and make owners potentially of these subject lands wait decades, 20, 30, 40 years to sell. This is not a short-term wait, as the report indicates. It's a lifetime for many people. The report says that retailers follow population growth and traffic, but these subject lands don't actually fulfill this critical requirement. Over 90% of traffic that heads east on Innisfil Beach Road actually turns left or northbound at 25 Side Road. So the only solution that the TARE report is giving is to overcome this problem is to create continuous programming in the park to achieve a pedestrian activation, they call it. So this basically means that the town is going to have to find ways to draw people to this area year-round if they want the retailers and restaurants to survive. And my marketing experience tells me that this is an expensive and futile venture. The beach park is not a year-round destination, and I don't believe it ever will be. It also has limitations of low traffic count, a small square area, and lack of municipal parking nearby, which really basically are going to curb any interest by developers for this section.
Thank you, Ms. Stanley.
That's
a little over 3 minutes now, so if you could just wrap up.
Okay. Basically, I guess I'm just suggesting or asking council that to review this report, because the information in it is quite overwhelming as to why it's probably not a good idea and a risky proposition. So I'm asking council to please not approve the recommendations for rezoning to commercial mixed use and to keep this area as residential. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stanley. Next is Tyler Martino. Mr. Martino.
Hello, Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I hope you are all having a good evening. My name is Tyler Martino. I grew up right here in Innisfil, and this is where all my family and friends are from. I have prominent roots in this town that are ever growing as my family have owned multiple businesses here. As for me, I was fortunate to have gotten a job day one at one of the most exciting developments going on in Innisfil at the moment, Friday Harbor. Giving my brother and my peers my jobs. It has been perfect for me as I've also been able to work on getting my real estate license. My emotional connection with Innisfil is deep. This is where I have grown up and I have lived through my most formative years. I have some of my most fond memories going down to the beach with my family. Having lived here for 20 plus years, there's always been one glaring problem that Innisfil is finally looking to fix. There's nothing to do. Whether I'm at the beach with my friends or family, when we're all done enjoying the sun, it's always the same question. What pizza place are we going to? It's been like that for 15 years, and finally now the town is looking to develop Innisfil Beach Road for the better, bringing in new homegrown businesses and restaurants to the strip, easily accessible to tourists and locals alike, trying to enjoy beautiful Lake Simcoe. How could anybody not want that? It is also allowing our youth like me and thousands of others that are part of the community to have an opportunity to not only work in town, but also keep the money right here in Innisfil, with hopes of my generation raising their own families here. I think from now moving forward, we have to start not only looking into the future of Innisfil, but it is also essential to listen to the future voices of the town. It seems anytime this town is looking to break from the mold of the past is met with resistance and fear of change. I think it is important to have new minds and perspectives start to shape the future of Innisfil. I plead for everyone involved to keep an open mind and put into consideration that the decisions made today are going to directly impact my generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martino.
Thank you.
Next is Gordon Knox.
I hope you can hear me, Your Worship.
Yes, Mr. Knox.
Very good. Your Worship, members of council, my name is Gordon Knox. I live on Lakelands. I've been asked to make a few comments here and turn a 2-hour discussion into 2 minutes. So let's hang on to our hats here. I'm a retired urban planner and I was the planner of record for the town of Wasaga Beach for over 30 years. So I think I know a little bit about tourism. I hate to tell you, but you don't have tourists and you're not going to have tourists. You're going to have residents and you're going to have day visitors. And rarely do they leave much money behind. In regard to retail, there's 3 principles: location, location, location. The 3 pictures in your staff report show urban centers much larger than Alcona with through major highways. This thing is on a dead end, or the area to be considered is on a dead end. Yesterday, I was in a 20-car convoy starting around the Crossroads Plaza. I was the only one to cross the 25th Side Road, and that's common even in the summer. 60,000 square feet, 40 stores, more than 3 times the size of the Crossroads Plaza. Alcona is blessed with some fabulous lots for development, deep lots, large lots, and this is where development is going to go first. Now, land development and economics 101, and this has not been addressed by anyone yet. If you need to borrow money to develop land, the first thing the lender is going to ask you is show me your leases. I suspect that the signs we've seen saying opening in 2018, 19, and 20 fall on the sword of that particular problem. They don't have tenants, and therefore they don't have the money. Therefore, at this moment, there's no demand, but that demand is going to happen inland before it happens down here. The result, I believe, is going to be no development is going to occur in this area. The residents are going to be locked into limbo. Take a look at some of the derelict buildings and housing that you've got on IBR right now. They're basically in the hands of the developers or a developer waiting for a tenant and a lease that they can, or where they get the money. And quite frankly, in my opinion, the rezoning of these lands are going to do these residents a huge disservice, and they probably don't even see it coming. Again, as I say, I think that at the end of the day, the opportunity for the kind of development that is being proposed, even the design, I look at the design and you're talking over 100 residential units and over 40. You're going to need at least 200 parking spaces, and I don't even see that yet in what I could count. So anyways, what should happen? Every time I drive by those houses, I see brownstone townhouses, high-end development, And I think that's exactly the highest and best use of land there. And I might just add in closing, I have read Mrs. Stanley's report, and quite frankly, I believe she's on point on all of her issues that she's risen or has brought to your attention. And I don't know if I got in under 2 minutes or not, but that's it.
Under 3. So we gave you a little latitude.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I'll sign out of here then. Thank you.
Next is Ms. Forgrave.
Hello, I have a computer back now. Thank you for waiting. Can you hear me? We're good, perfect. Okay, so my name is Karen Forgrave. You may remember me from a presentation I made on August the 12th, where I expressed concerns over the proposed rezoning of areas east of the 25th Side Road along both Innisfil Beach Road and Lakelands Avenue. In that presentation, I expressed concerns over the amount of proposed commercial space and vacant commercial space that exists already along Innisfil Beach Road west of the 25th Side Road. I also presented concerns about how further commercialization near the lake will negatively impact the area in terms of noise pollution, increased traffic, and how it detracts from the natural beauty of the Innisfil Beach Park area, where people go to get away from some of the noise and urbanization of the area. When I look at the new proposed plan that's before us tonight, I'm very concerned by some of the diagrams that show now a 3rd floor, which is higher than the proposal that was before us as you get towards the lake, that before was capped at 2 stories, and now we have pictures that show 3 stories wrapping around Innisfil Beach Road onto Lakelands Avenue, which directly abuts residential properties and is also across the road from residential properties. As has been raised by other people tonight, the concern about the amount of commercial space that is needed continues to be a concern. I shared a quote in my last presentation that reflected a quote that says, "The rate of growth of new retail space is anticipated to be slower than in the past because of a variety of market factors, including the increased influence of e-commerce and its effect on bricks and mortar retail." And that was from the town's own paper of Our Place in the 2015 Phase 1 report, and before COVID again. And in the current report we have in front of us tonight, the 74-page report, it says multiple times that a comprehensive review of commercial land needs is proposed in the 2021 capital budget for 2022, at which time the long-term forecast can be readjusted. The report actually is acknowledging that updated vacancies and revised market demand analysis would need to be re-examined. This is a quote: "In the coming years, vacancies will be examined in the scheduled 2022 commercial land needs study and policy update." So the question is, why are we considering rezoning this land now before we can make an informed decision about the needs for this area once we have that data in 2022? So I want to urge everybody to make an informed decision. Again, I want to reiterate that I think commercialization should take place west of the 25th Side Road, near the subdivisions where there's already commercial land. And if you're looking for another entrance to the park and having amenities besides pizza places, as was mentioned by Tyler, near the park, there's already commercial land that exists on the 25th Side Road across from the park, and an entrance there where the water treatment facility is. So please, councillors, I urge you to make an informed decision and hold off on rezoning this land until we have more data available to us in 2022. Hopefully we're past COVID then, and we can see if there really is a demand for more commercial space. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forgrave. Thanks everyone for your comments on open forum. We'll now move to the approval of the agenda. So we have 2 delegations that are before us tonight. Item 6.2 and 6.3. So with that amendment, could I ask for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Fowler and Councillor Waters, all those in favor? That is carried. Next, I would ask if there's any disclosures of interest on the agenda this evening. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. With regards to item C.7, I have submitted a form to disclose that I have a conflict on that item. I have a family that own one of the properties that are listed in that item, so I will be stepping aside when that is brought forward.
Thank you, Councillor Ices. And our virtual version of stepping aside is just asking you to turn off your camera when that item comes up, if you don't mind. Thank you so much. So next is presentations and petitions. So we do have two this evening, both from our conservation authorities that are within our municipalities. So the first one, item 5.1, is from the CAO of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, Mr. Doug Havner. Mr. Havner, whenever you're ready, sir.
Just for clarification, Mayor, is someone going to progress the slides at my call? Yes.
Yes, we have the clerk's office, Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk. Is that what's going to happen?
Through your worship, yes, one of the assistant clerks is going to be running the presentation. If you just ask for a next slide, they will progress it for you.
Thanks very much. Next slide, please. I'm going to try and take us through this pretty quick. 10 minutes is going to be quite short. Just going to let you see the slide. You've all seen these slide deck before. Just a touch here. As you're well aware, the watershed is one of the fastest growing in the area. You're seeing growth, and we see it throughout our entire watershed. The important aspects of the watershed for us is the Innisfil Creek is part of the Nottawasaga Valley watershed, and we play a factor there. Our jurisdiction covers just over 112 square kilometers, or 43% of the town site. Next slide, please. Again, something for you to take with you. I just want to show that vision and mission again. I'm not going to read it. It's for you've read it before, you've seen it. It's carried us through our last rendition of our integrated watershed management plan, and we still believe very strongly in all of the aspects of both the vision and mission, and it will carry us forward into the future. Next slide, please. This is something that was new. We're very fortunate to work with strong partners, not only in our municipal partners, but in our conservation authority partners. And we turn to advice and information from Lake Simcoe when we can. This was something we wanted to provide to you this year, and we'll provide it in the future. It's our new budget companion that we put together for you to review. Lots of good information for your council to look and see what each of our programs do and the highlights from those programs. Next slide, please. Some of our accomplishments in our watershed this year, we worked very diligently in our watershed science. This year, monitoring was really slowed down for us. The ministry labs were not open. We weren't functioning. We had to move into a situation where we actually laid off our monitoring staff and rehired them in contract positions to work in other aspects of our water program. We did, however, this year completed a natural heritage discussion paper outlining our future direction for the program. It's available for council if they'd like to see it. We also finalized our report documenting NVCA wetland mapping and a protocol for the future of how we prepare to do this in the future. Next slide, please. Our educational program was devastated this year. I don't have to speak to anyone in this room about COVID. We're virtually in this room because of COVID and the pandemic that we faced. We have really tried to take the high road when it comes to health. We've honored and respected all of the addicts that have come out of the Simcoe County Health Unit. We laid off just about all of our staff. We had one part-time senior staff person working. They did eventually get laid off. We have brought them back and recently brought back staff. We're currently right now doing a program on microplastics up in the Collingwood Basin funded by Georgian Bay Forever. And we're doing that as satellite instructors at school sites. We are also doing satellite instruction in some other Simcoe County school sites. And we've just recently started doing some school sites attending our Tiffin Center this year. But our education program lost a lot of revenue and really lost a lot of face. We normally see 15,000 plus children being educated at our Tiffin site and through our programs. So heartfelt. Next slide, please. Stewardship and restoration. This is the real lifeblood of a conservation authority. I think that we all know that the river system and the watershed are important factors. We think that it's the lifeblood of conservation authorities. It involves a mosaic of all 18 of our municipal members working together to consider the best interests of the river system running from Oak Ridges Moraine through to Georgian Bay. We're fortunate that we have this wonderful fishery that's on the system itself. Chinook salmon, 45 to 50 kilometers inland from Georgian Bay. Great spawning for brook trout and for Chinook salmon as well. This year, our wildlife biologist, Fred Dobbs, was able to work on 300 meters of erosion stream bank and installing 300 meters of woody stream habitat and 1,000 meters of livestock inclusion on one of our situations where we had exterior funding to provide this work. It's vital to maintain those cool water streams, and the work that he's done has been really remarkable. In the Collingwood Basin up on the Black Creek area, we also did a decommissioning of the dam in Batoon, and this will help the cool stream allocation into Georgian Bay and hopefully support the sports fishing that comes into the area. I know that Innisfil and Barrie are well aware of what sports fishing can bring to the community. It's important that we have this strong river system. We also did a ice dam work down in Beaton Creek. Really had a great opportunity to bring our board members down and have an opportunity to look at that stream and see how we've really put the ripple back in the water and we've put the wiggle back in the stream so that the fish have a tremendous habitat. These programs are vital. They haven't been identified as core programs in Conservation Authority work by the current Bill 229. And we really believe that they're the lifeblood of the work that we drive out for our community partners. Next slide, please. We planted over 107,000 trees. That's about half of what we'd normally plant in a year. And in planting that, we were able to raise privately $272,000 in funding outside of our budgeted dollars from the province, municipal governments in specialized programs, Forest Ontario, and private landowners. We also managed over 1,000 acres of forest. Again, that forestry program is vital. It's important that we maintain the cool water. It's important that we maintain the riparian areas on those banks and hold the erosion slopes in place. And it's vital that we do this work, and we hope to continue to do it in the future. Next slide, please. Next, yes, flood. I want you to look at this picture because it's vitally important that we consider what flooding does. We want to see flooding involved without infrastructure. We want to work with our municipal partners like you in Innisfil, especially to try to maintain infrastructure and development outside of these areas. It's vital that when the flood occurs, it can roll over the banks and it can recede into the natural areas and then naturally and normally percolate back into the water, not putting communities in danger, not putting lives in danger, not putting infrastructure in danger. We do this by monitoring the dams that we have in the area. We have a dam at Utopia, we have a dam in New Lowell, we have the Tottenham Dam. And right now we're actually doing a study on the Pretty River Dike system in Collingwood and the Tottenham Dam safety in Tottenham. We use this program to monitor ice conditions. And the thing that's vitally important in flood control is that we don't just see those winter melts and snow happening. We can have events, storms, and flood events at any time during the year. The rain patterns are changing throughout our area. Go back to the June 2017 storm that ravaged the southern part of the watershed. So I think we just have to work strongly together to really plan appropriate locations for infrastructure. Next slide, please. Planning and development. On this one, we're really proud of the fact that we've tried to get ahead. We've tried to work better with our partners and reduce the red tape and get timelines out faster. The calc that we use to monitor our events. We have 90 days to turn out a permit. In the first quarter of January in 2020, we were only hitting that at 90% for 90 days and only 85% for 60 days. We really looked at how we could do things. And when COVID hit and we were started to satellite our staff out of the office and work in different ways, we looked at ways that we could work better. And I'm really happy to report that in the second and third quarters ending in October, we're targeting 98% completion on 90-day permits and 95% completion on 60-day permits. So here we're getting out ahead of the government's call to reduce red tape. I think we're really working at it. There you can see in the third bullet point, all of the acts that we work with. The conservation authorities don't create these aspects. We interpret them and we review them and we comment on them. They're the government's laws and that's what we act on. And I think many times that's confused. Finally, we also worked on 2 national disaster mitigation programs. We worked on one in Wasaga Beach to help outlay flood lines for their new official plan. And we also worked at one down in the Agilitas area to assist them in floodplain mapping. Next slide, please. Conservation lands. Everybody in the area knows that the GTA found Central Ontario. We had people up on our lands traveling around. We had lots of people out there. They were respecting physical damage distancing. They were respecting social distancing. They paid their parking fees and for the most part were very good. We had wedding events this year canceled. We lost virtually all the revenue from that, approximately $85,000 in funding was lost. We also lost our spring festival this year, which will greatly affect one of the major health providers in the area. Typically, we provide $30,000, $15,000 to the NVCA and $15,000 to Rotary that goes into the RVH programming in Barrie. That was lost. Fortunately, we've resecured most of our bookings for 2021, and we're going to have a full season in 2021. Next slide, please. Just want to look at things focusing going forward. You know, Bill 108 is what we planned on. Bill 108 is what we discussed and we had stakeholder engagement on. And then Bill 229 came with a lot of new items for us to look at and review. We'll continue to incorporate our integrated watershed management plan. We did a 2-year project where we consulted with over 300 stakeholders from the watershed to build a 20-year horizon on the watershed. And as I mentioned already, we're working diligently to try to improve our service to our clients and our customers. Next slide, please. When we built our budget, we had some certain budget pressures. We definitely had the pressures of COVID and the pandemic. We're forecasting a budget loss of approximately $100,000 to $110,000 in our 2020 year. We're not coming to our council members and our partners hat in hand. We're looking at removing that money from our reserves. We've worked extremely hard to bankroll some reserves, so reserves are for that rainy day. We respect the needs of our community partners and their ability to manage their funds, and we should be called to effort on that as well. Just want to note the provincial funding last year was cut $97,000 in our flood services. We're going to see benefits go up, insurance premiums, property taxes. These are no news stories for you. You're well aware of those fixed costs that go up. We're trying to manage them as best we can. I'm going to quickly pass this over to my Director of Corporate Affairs to finish off the financial portion, if I may, Mayor.
Welcome, Ms. Flanagan.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to be here tonight. Can I get the next slide, please? So how are we addressing these pressures? The board approved a $38,000 levy increase as a guideline for the 2021 budget, and staff worked very hard to come up with a responsible budget for our member municipalities. We looked at 3-year trends. We looked at all of our expenditures and revenues. We even eliminated a full-time position for our 2020 year. Our draft increase came in below board approved guidelines at $35,768. Next slide, please. Based on the current value assessment provided to us by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and how we are required to distribute levy as per the Conservation Authorities Act, Innisfil's portion of the increase is $7,935 over 2020's numbers, making our operational request for 2021 $183,475. Next slide, please. This slide shows how we take Innisfil's contribution, add in our other municipalities, along with provincial and federal funding that we get through grants, as well as additional grants that the NVCA applies for, and the revenue the NVCA creates for an additional $4.8 million for a total of a $5 million budget. Next slide, please. So what is the impact to the residents of our watershed? As you can see on the graph on the left, this is found in our program overview as well that Doug mentioned earlier, and we really encourage you all to read this. But on the graph to the left, it works out to be $12.62 per watershed resident. This happens to be the exact same amount as it was for 2020. The other chart is small on this slide, but it just breaks it down by department and what each department consists of to make the $12.62. Next slide, please. Our asset management plan was introduced in 2016 and implemented in our 2017 budget. And we thank Innisfil for your participation in it. We did manage to get all of our municipalities. It was phased in by a number of our municipalities, and that phase-in was completed in the 2020 budget year. The plan has been updated every year, and the 2021 budget update saw some savings by staff, which resulted in a decrease in our overall needs for 2021. However, and I'm sure you're probably sick of hearing this from us, due to CVA adjustment and Innisfil's continued growth, your contribution for 2021 actually does go up slightly from to $10,051, up from the $9,491 in 2020. And then below is a few examples of the things the NVCA will be doing in 2021. It is important to note that a number of items that were approved in the 2020 budget have been deferred to 2021 due to COVID, and those funds have already been received and allocated for in this budget. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the total ask between operational and asset levies. As you will see, the total ask for Innisfil for 2021 is $193,526, an increase of just over, I believe, $8,000. Sorry, I can't see the slide. Yeah, just over $8,000 over 2020. Next slide, please. So that's it for our presentation. If time permits, I'm not sure where we are for time. We do have our chair, Keith White, who is a councillor for the Township of Essa here, and he normally likes to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. White. Councillor White, Chair White. I think you're still muted, Keith. There we go. Now you're muted.
Okay, am I live?
You are.
Okay, sorry, I didn't have any audio, so I'm over my my cell phone right now. I have been listening, and our Vice Chair, Marion McLeod, Councillor from Collingwood, was lined up ready to go if I could not get audio, so my apologies. But on behalf of the Board of Directors and also Vice Chair McLeod, myself, I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity. I've been on the NVCA board for 10 years and certainly have known Mayor Dolan through source water protection and other things like that. And certainly we're at a very challenging time just now because of COVID and funding, and obviously as well Schedule 6 of Bill 229. But basically we're certainly up for the challenge from a budget perspective, and I believe our staff have done an excellent job. As Cheryl mentioned, the board did approve a 1.5% increase. Staff came back at 1.4%, and so we're pleased to put this budget to you and to your membership. And my greetings also to council members that have been on this NVCA board in the past, and it's good to see you all again. So thank you so much, and certainly if there's any questions of staff, please go ahead.
Thank you. And just before that, if Marianne wanted to, Vice Chair McLeod, if you just wanted to turn on your video too, so people could put a face to a name, because I know you're fairly new Vice Chair at the Conservation Authority, and also recognize Councillor Nicol, who is our very faithful representative on the board. Any questions or comments for any of the board members or any of the staff of the NVCA? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Great to see everybody again tonight. I think it's the first time in almost 6-7 years that we've had this many members of the NVCA actually present to us. So it's great to see Doug, Cheryl, Chair Keith, as well as Vice Chair Marion as well. So thank you so much for that. As you noted, it's been a very interesting year with the NVCA. We seem to have adopted very well. And as you said, staff have come in under budget from what we recommended. Also discussed there was Bill 229, and if you guys do have the time to stick around, I'm sure you have a bit, but maybe not all. we do have a recommendation that's coming up on Bill 229 tonight as well too. So hopefully council will have the vision to see that through as well. So, but great to see you. And if not, I'll see you guys on Friday at 9. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the NVCA? Seeing none, I have a motion to receive the information, and that be moved by Councillor Nicol, seconded by Councillor Waters. And just to let you know that council is considering budget. We're going into a 2 full day, roll up our sleeves budget meetings all day on November the 30th, and then again on December the 2nd. So I'm sure we'll have more discussion then. So all those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much for being with us this evening. I know with so many member municipalities, it's a bit of a road show this time of year for you. So thank you for that. Next, we have Mike Walters, the CAO of the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, the other part of our watershed. Welcome, Mr. Walters. I thought you'd be retired with your feet up by now.
Thank you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, not until the end of the year. So they're still keeping me busy. So it is my great pleasure to be in front of council tonight. I'd like to thank you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, and all of council staff and anybody who's streaming from home. We have our budget. I understand the time constraints, so I'll go through this relatively quickly. But obviously, if you have questions, please ensure that you stop me if I'm going too fast. So next slide, please. So just a watershed at a glance. We've been around since 1946. We are dedicated to restoring and managing the Lake Simcoe watershed. As you know, we have an 18 board member appointed on 4-year cycles with 9 member municipalities. And to my Doug's point, we are one of the fastest growing areas in Ontario. Next slide, please. So the watershed is roughly 3,400 square kilometers. We have 20 municipalities. The lake is 722 square kilometers. And essentially, our origins are from the Oak Ridges Moraine in the south, up moving north to the Oro Moraine on the west side. We have 18 major river systems that flow through the landscape and comprise the drainage into Lake Simcoe. Next slide, please. So we have had some business impact of COVID like our counterpart. We closed our office on the 17th of March. Within 5 days, I'm very proud to say we had 100% of our staff working from home. We did not do any layoffs in 2020. Our educational program, Place Based, did close, but our people pivoted very quickly and they were able to do online programming, and that will continue into the future. It's been very successful. We did have to postpone quite a few of our projects just initially, as well as the renovation on the operations center at Scanlon, but they are up and moving again, and I'll report on them later. The board meetings did move online, and we are still not back to the office yet. Our return to work schedule will be phased in, and it will be determined by local health authorities. The most important thing for us is making sure that we're keeping our staff and watershed residents safe. Next slide, please. So just some of our accomplishments. I was in front of council not that long ago, so I'll go through these quickly. I won't spend a lot of time. The 2 climate change strategies, the adaptation and the mitigation strategies are completed. And that means that we're starting to operationalize those activities and recommendations. So staff will be reaching out, and I think they may have already to staff within the town to start getting some of the recommendations implemented. We did update our floodplain emergency mapping, and this is providing those opportunities to find those flood relief projects. And I know we already have one with the municipality, and that's the Alcona wetland. And I'm looking forward, hopefully, to see that started before I leave at the end of the year. As far as other restoration works, we completed 84 projects across the watershed, cost of $3.5 million, and all of those are really to improve the health and quality of the lake. And we have achieved more than half of our own internal target for carbon reduction. And that was not due to COVID, that was due to changes in our fleet vehicles and some other modifications. As we move forward with asset management and replacement, what we're doing is we're making sure that we're greening our fleet to achieve the carbon reduction that we need. Next slide, please. The other thing is we've completed our land disposition policy. It was approved earlier this year, and the strategy is actually at our board this coming Friday for approval. And we've already started discussions. These are lands that are traditionally been managed by municipalities that we own. And it makes sense just to transfer those lands to those municipalities. That is something we're looking forward to trying to complete. It does mean that we'll be able to pay more attention to other lands that we own, as well as land acquisition, which is still very much part of what we want to do for the purposes of restoration and passive recreation. So we have completed the Scanlon Creek Operation Center renovation. I have to thank Council for your continued contribution to that. The facility looks great. I wish we could move into it. We will hopefully sometime in the new year. Again, as the health units say, it's safe. And we are continuing to provide leading edge science. The work that's being done on the lake within the watershed is helping inform decision making, and that's really important. And as we move forward, we're working with our partners, the province, on the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, and they're currently undertaking a 10-year review of the status, and we're contributing to that as well. Next slide, please. So I'm really proud to say we're closing out our strategic plan. This was a 5-year plan from 2016 to 2020. We've completed 40 of the 42 initiatives, so 95% is complete. There's 2 remaining to be completed, and they're casualties of COVID, unfortunately. Our engagement strategy, which did involve face-to-face meetings with stakeholders and focus groups, will be done online. And we're working internally right now with communications to make that happen. And our asset management financial strategy, the plan is completed, but now we have to put a strategy in place on how we're going to pay for maintaining the assets into the future. So I have to give kudos to my staff. They've done a phenomenal job, as well as the board, who continue to support these initiatives moving forward. Next slide, please. We've had some challenges with Bill 108 has been mentioned. We are concerned that the transition period has yet to be defined, and we would like to see it a little longer than what's proposed. Obviously, with Bill 229, there are a number of unintended consequences, and you have our correspondence that we provided, and we are looking forward, hopefully, to your support. So I'll do that pitch now. We are looking at the need to have multiple memorandums of understanding for those programs which are considered non-core. And we do want to have those discussions with all our municipal partners to essentially come up with a format that everybody can live with, and something that's easy and does not take a lot of work to complete. So next slide, please. So I'm just going to go through the 2021 budget highlights. Respect the taxpayer. This next year will be a transition year, and our focus will be on implementation. Next slide, please. So we understand with COVID-19 the pressures that have been placed on our municipalities. We understand that there's a lot of hardship out there. We want to respect the taxpayer. This is the smallest percent increase we've had in 5 years. At the direction of the board and with their recommendation, we're looking at a 1% increase. This is a status quo budget. There are no new full-time equivalent staff. Programs and services will only grow should we find external dollars through other opportunities. So, and we're always looking for revenue. So hopefully we'll be able to find some as well. Next slide, please. As I said, the increase has been held to 1%. That means an $80,000 increase overall on our budget. So we're going from essentially 8.79 to $8.87 million. Next slide, please, with respect to all of the input from our municipal partners. I mentioned this is a transitional year. There will be a development of a new strategic plan. It won't be a 5-year plan. It'll be a 3-year plan. and that is to reflect the uncertainty around COVID and the economy moving forward. I am proud and very happy to say that, as you know, my successor has been named, Rob Baldwin, who is currently the General Manager of Development and Planning Services, along with Restoration, will be taking the reins as of January 1st. So you're in good hands. We are going to be taking 2021 to align with the changes associated with Bill 108 and now Bill 229. And as I mentioned, Rob is the new CAO. Next slide, please. So this year will be all about implementation. We're looking at operational, as I said, the two climate change strategies. We're looking at establishing new restoration goals and targets and performance indicators for all of our natural heritage features, the forests, the wetlands, the grasslands, water quality with respect to phosphorus and salt, and water quantity with respect to trying to reduce floodplains and maintaining water balance, which is the water that goes into the ground as well as what runs off on the surface. Next slide, please. We're going to be acting on the recommendations, as I mentioned, of the land acquisition and disposition strategies. There is opportunity to acquire lands for the purposes of restoration and then divulge those lands to third parties like Nature Conservancy, our municipal partners. So we are still very much looking for those opportunities where we can actually create more forest, create more wetlands, create more grasslands out in the watershed. We're going to continue to restore the watershed. All of the restoration projects, from water quality to natural heritage, water quantity, will be completed. We do have capital monies already allocated towards projects, and we are initiating the flood relief program in earnest. So that project in Okona, there is resource available, and we do definitely want to be talking with your staff moving forward to make sure that that project becomes a reality. Next slide, please. So COVID-related budget challenge, we still do have some. There's additional cleaning, sanitation required in our office. There are alterations that we're going to have to make. As I mentioned, there was the educational program. We did lose revenue in tree planting, and planting applications were down. I don't know if that was COVID related, but it got bunched in here. We seem to have had a reduction in planting applications. Based on the activity that's occurring now, though, through the watershed, we're not anticipating that to be a problem in 2021. Next slide, please. So here's our overall budget at a glance. We are going down from 2020, approximately a little less than $5 million. A large part of that is through the capital project side. Some of that was for the renovation for the ops center, and some of it is we're being very conservative with respect to our estimates for revenue coming in from the offsetting programs, since we saw a decline in the number of plans of subdivision. And have to give a shout out to the build industry. They've been great partners, and the offsetting program continues to support a lot of the restoration work that we do. We are going to be looking at a small draw from reserve. And again, that's for COVID related issues, as well as some small operational one-off issues as well. Next slide, please. So I think this is the one everybody's been waiting for. There is an increase based on the 1%. It's around $7,500 in that area. Our approved budget in 2020 was $404,982. We're looking at the 1%, 4,000 plus the 3,600, so just over 7,500 for a total in 2021 of $412,638. So it is an increase. We've tried to keep it as small as we could, respecting the municipality's current condition situation with COVID and the taxpayer. Unfortunately, we did not see any assistance from the province financially for what happened with COVID. And we are only receiving at present around $64,000 in provincial funding for all of our operational programs. Next slide, please. And this is just our special levy at a glance. It's contained in the previous budget, but it gives you an indication of where the money is being spent within the authority. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, we do expect to return to the office in 2021. We are still trying to grapple with the implications of Bill 108 and now Bill 229. Our asset financial management strategy is under development. The new strategic plan is well underway. We've completed the situational analysis and the internal review. We are going to be coming out to all of our municipal partners and other stakeholders to see how best we can align our services with yours so that we can get that return on investment and find those efficiencies. And again, we're hoping to have our board of directors finalize our budget, hopefully sometime early in 2021. Next slide, please. So with that, I'd be more than happy to take any questions. I know Mark Critch is somewhere in the myriad of people as well. He's our CFO and General Manager of Corporate Services, and he's much more knowledgeable about financial implications associated with any of the questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Walters, very much. And I'm also going to thank Councillor Waters for all of his hard work at the LSRCA on behalf of the town of Innisfil. And if Mr. Critch wants to turn on his video, he's more than welcome to do so. And I'll ask council if they have any questions. Seeing none, I have one, and it's to do with the forest acquisition, Mr. Walters. So I wonder if you've ever had a conversation with the forester at the County of Simcoe. They have a large reserve and a really well managed and the largest municipal forest operation in Ontario, municipal forest operation in Ontario. And they use the land from their timber sales. They put it back into a reserve. And I know that, I know that there's going to be a concerted effort to get more southern forests because of the forest cover in Simcoe County is predominantly to the north. And they did they updated their strategic plan, which was going to look for, even though the land is much more expensive, to look for land in South Simcoe. So I wondered if you've ever had a conversation with them.
To your worship, yes, Graham Davis is well known to staff at the authority as he worked with us for years as our manager of restoration a long time ago before going to the county. There is a working group that's been established between the regions, Durham and York, as well as the county. It's going to be looking at how we can best align and essentially grow the amount of money that we have for restoration. Our goals are aligned. There is a bit of a difference between the forest that we look for and the lands that the county actually purchase. We're looking for lands that might not be a forest, but adjacent to a forest that could become a forest. So we're looking more at the restoration side. That does not mean, though, that we wouldn't partner with the county on the purchase of land to take it and put it into protection, as long as the county held the land at the end of the day. Unfortunately, the province is leaning away from us being a major landholder of protected properties. So we're looking at other partnerships with the Nature Conservancy of Canada right now. And there's a lot of opportunity still out there, despite the fact that the economy is tough and we have COVID. So the answer is yes. I'm sorry for the long involved one, though, to get there.
That's quite all right. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank you very much, Mr. Walters, for all your very many years at the Conservation Authority. And we look forward to working with Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. And if I could, I did want to thank Councillor Waters, because he is our only representative here tonight. And it's not the quantity, it's the quality, I always say. So I would like to thank very much Councillor Waters for all his excellent service and that he provides on our Conservation Authority Board.
Thank you. CEO Rayner.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I just wanted to also personally extend my thanks to Mr. Walters for his many years of service to our community. I secretly think he owns land somewhere, because whenever I spoke to him, he always acted and thought like a resident, and such an Innisfil champion. And those of us in the CAO world are, of course, happy to see him go, because he keeps setting these bars of sleeping outside with no shelter, and just doing everything he possibly can to help his community. It's nauseating. So we're just so glad that he'll be moving on to his retirement. I'm just kidding, Mike. We've always been really impressed with you, and he's just been such a good collaborator. Mike has always tried to reach out, build bridges, and just pull all of the teams together to succeed. And he took what was an excellent legacy when he came into the role, and just set the bar even higher. I feel bad for Rob, to be honest. He's got enormous shoes to fill, but he's also a champion for Innisfil, so we're very excited. And we just want to wish you all the best, Mike. You absolutely deserve the Muskoka chair, and the peace and quiet that will come with. And we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any Councillor Waters?
Just on behalf of myself, it's been really great working with Mike coming on as a new board member. Even though I had the background in conservation, Mike is such a friendly sort that he makes you feel welcome. And what I think I really appreciate with Mike, he's such an effective communicator that anytime I had some questions that didn't always come out the best, he was able to articulate a good solid answer, made me always feel comfortable with what the Conservation Authority does. So I think that's one of his best assets is the fact that he effectively communicated the goals, successes, and difficulties that sometimes we ran into. So I wish him all the best. If it's going to be in Muskoka, he ends up, maybe I'll drop down for a beer sometime.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you, everyone. And so we have a recommendation that to receive for information the presentation by the LSRCA on their 2021 proposed budgets, and that's moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
Councillor Sadi?
Thank you. I just wanted to report, I received an email on my phone from Councillor Payne. She's having technical difficulties with her computer, so if we're just aware that she's trying to get connected and get IT support.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. Can you get IT to contact her?
We are reaching out, Your Worship, and in the event that she's listening on YouTube right now, we would also encourage her to call in through her mobile phone number as a last resort. Thank you, Worship. We're on it.
Thank you. Thank you. So the next delegation is by Dan Taylor. Dan is our Economic Development Catalyst. And whenever you're ready, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. Yeah, so we do ad hoc or infrequent updates, and this is another one just to bring council up to speed. We can go to the next slide. So we're going to cover a bit of ground with respect to some activity that we've done. I'm going to get right into it and just move past the overview to the next slide. So everybody's quite aware of DMZ Innisfil, and DMZ Innisfil has led to some excellent new development. So I just wanted to share that with council to make sure they have an understanding of how the program is going and how it's evolving. Upon launching DMZ Innisfil, it was around the same time as the outbreak of COVID, and our partners at Ryerson with DMC launched something that I think everyone is familiar with called a hackathon. And in the hackathon, we were invited to participate. And what we did is we brought some problems that we felt maybe some startups could solve, which they did. And we ended up, we were originally going to pick one winner. And we ended up getting actually 5 great solutions, and we zoned in on 3. You may be familiar with the chatbot that we're working on customer service, the boat launch reservation system, and now a communications vehicle to try and reach out to taxpayers directly, not unlike an emergency warning that you get on your cell phone. By what this ended up being was a prelude to GovTech, meaning the three solutions are government technology solutions, which is a whole new growing category globally. And what we've ended up doing is working with the DMZ to develop a GovTech stream. So a little bit of background. When we launched DMZ, we said we are sector agnostic and stage specific. All that really means is we didn't know what sectors might succeed, but we felt we wanted to focus on stages. And stages were really just after an idea and companies being in a young 12 to 18 month stage, or perhaps even a slightly later stage where they were ready to scale. So long story short is we are launching shortly a sector, GovTech sector, as part of DMZ Innisfil. And as part of that, we are piloting something we're calling a municipal innovation network. And I want to walk council through that on the next slide to help everybody understand where we're going next. So if you imagine the hackathon where we invited startups to solve municipal problems, in this case, Innisfil problems, our vision for the for DMZ, for the GovTech side, is to work with a handful of municipalities who are like-minded, meaning they want to work with startups who can solve municipal problems. And ideally what happens is the solutions serve residents better and save on resources, time, money, or both. And so, and it'll work the same way as the hackathon, where imagine there's a panel of 6, 8, 10, 12 folks, 6 of which who are municipalities. And we will put a call out for problems to be solved and then judge them Dragon's Den style, like we've been doing. And then the winners will get a contract, not unlike what happened at the hackathon. And the idea then is we will incubate or accelerate those GovTech startups at DMZ Innisfil. And through that small network and our larger network, because through our mayor's good work and our other relationships, we're connected to many other municipalities, is give these new startups a leg up and give them access to more business opportunities. So we just wanted to let council know that this is a new development that's evolved. GovTech is fairly developed in the US, not so much in Canada. We believe we will be the first GovTech accelerator in the country. And our goal is to build a cluster of GovTech startups in Innisfil that are established in Innisfil and then grow in Innisfil and give us a competitive advantage moving forward. I'm going to continue because I want to cover a bit of ground and then certainly questions later. Next slide, Kim. In the report that you would have received already, as a response to COVID, we did a move forward business plan. I'm not going to go through everything through that right now, but in it we identified a top 10 areas of focus, many of which I'm going to cover in this presentation, and hopefully you will have seen them within the report. So I'm going to continue. One of the highlights, as you're aware of, as a response to COVID, is the What's for Dinner Today program. They were kind of teetering on not doing as well as they had hoped before COVID. We reached out to them. As you know, we gave some subsidies. We helped them go from about 350 deliveries per week to a little over 1,500. We stopped the subsidy and they balanced out at around 1,100 per week. So they tripled plus their business even after COVID, and also helped a couple of dozen restaurants. So we call that retention in the economic development language. So just a bit of a recap there. Next slide, please. Our other response to COVID, a major response to COVID and retention, was an online marketplace. So the federal government brought some funding, as did the province. You may have heard of a Shop Here program and a Digital Main Street program. So we partnered with Nottawasaga Futures, who basically brings digital expertise to businesses who want to get online. We launched that probably about 5-6 months ago now. To be transparent, the uptake has been medium. We are working closely with Nottawasaga and the business community to see if we can get more uptake. I suspect with the shutdown in Toronto and Peel and potential shutdowns broader, that there'll be more uptake there. And we're happy to help our businesses do that. So just wanted to update council on that. We'll continue. We surveyed businesses at that point in time. And as we know, many of our businesses are suffering. The big takeaway was that they needed grant support and financial support. Fortunately, with the federal and provincial grants that were available, about 2/3 have accessed some support. We are in the market, meaning primarily on social media, promoting our services to help businesses. Businesses do reach out, and we do our best to help all of them. We definitely talk to any and all that reach out, and we also reach out to those that we hear about. I think we'll continue to the next slide. Clerk, actually continue. I'm a few hot slides ahead of you. Go to the investment inquiries slide, if you don't mind. One more. One more slide, Kim, please. So the good news is, even though COVID is, challenging our economy, we do get a lot of investment inquiries, and there's some really good activity happening behind the scenes. I think, as you can appreciate, in economic development, we need to keep these things confidential until they do arise. So I don't really have too many things to report right now, but I do want to share that the economy continues to move forward. There is a great investor interest in commercial space, in industrial space, and in our startups as well with the DMZ program. So I just wanted council to have a good understanding of that, and also wanted to, we're on the topic of retention and expansion, thank Councillor Orsatti, who sent an email internally to us to nod to Brennan Kenny in particular, who deals with a lot of our businesses, and she was just acknowledging that our businesses do appreciate our personal, what we've been calling concierge, or hands-on service. So thank you, Councillor Orsatti, for making note of that. Quite appreciated. Next slide, please. Not going to get into it too much, because I know there is a, I'm one slide back, but you can leave this slide up, it's fine. With the developments in IBR, what I will say is, as we have done with downtown Alcona, where there's a long-term vision, 20, 30+ year vision of how things are developed, the development down further towards the beach, in our opinion, has a lot of merit, and we think there's a lot of potential there. So I just wanted to share some background on that with you. Another response to COVID, if folks recall, about 82% of all of our labor force left the town of Innisfil prior to COVID. We don't have data now, but the new reality is when things get quote unquote back to normal, whatever normal might be, is a lot of people are going to work from home. So we are working on and have done a soft launch on plans to help remote workers work successfully from the town, and also to work with employers, which also includes a co-working space and other spaces in creative ways. So that imagine if, you know, X thousand people worked from home Y days per week, they're going to be spending more time in the community, having more time to do activity when that's appropriate, and spending more money at our local businesses. So that's a big part of and a shift and a reaction to COVID. Next slide, please. We also in our report wanted to just highlight that we had a very busy year, and we are both appreciative and honored to act on behalf of council to assist, you know, our economy. And we have not heard any announcements yet, but we submitted quite a few projects. DMZ Innisfil Accelerator at 8000 Yonge Street, the Hackathon, our downtown Alcona investment attraction project, and a promotional video promoting Innisfil, our What's for Dinner Tonight response to COVID, some branding we've been doing with Innisfil Accelerates, the Orbit project, and a Tech Town podcast, which hopefully most of you have heard. So it's been a very busy year, and we've been doing all we can to both deal with COVID and also to look forward to build the economy. And we are thankful for council's support on that. Final slide, or almost final slide. I just added this near the end, and I hadn't really thought about it, but I'm happy to say we have many tentacles in the One Town, One Team camp, and I just thought I would highlight that with you, where our department is involved with work with Friday Harbor, with the Orbit, with the Idea Lab and libraries, with the communications department. We're actively working on Risardo Health Center tenancy, people in talent, helping them online in creative ways to find talent, building and planning, and in services in power and IT on the internet. So just, you may not be aware of, you know, our One Town, One Team stuff. Just thought I would share that. And I believe this is the final slide, which is just a thank you, council. And if there were any questions, would be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taylor. Is there questions or comments for Mr. Taylor on his presentation? Councillor Fowler.
I've seen what the economic development team has done with trying to draw industry into our town. And I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I like the way you're thinking. You're thinking organically, you're thinking locally, you're trying to think in ways to help support the small business owners, which is the biggest population that we have right now. So whatever you're doing, keep it up. You're doing awesome. Kudos.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. We're struggling a bit with your audio tonight, so I'm going to make a suggestion. The next time you want to speak, maybe turn your video off, and that might help your audio, because right now you're frozen. But we've been having a few technical difficulties tonight. The other one was Councillor Payne. Now she was able to join us. She's watching on iPad, and she's connected by phone. So I just want to give a test to Councillor Payne to see if we can hear her. If you could go off mute and just say hello, Councillor Payne. Okay, we'll try that. Oh, there she was. Okay, you were off mute and then you're back on again, Councillor. Can you hear us? Councillor Payne, did you want to say something? No. Okay, so we have somebody coming from IT is going to drop. It's apparently a cord issue, so they're going to drop the cord off to her. Other questions or comments for Mr. Taylor? Thank you very much for that update. And yes, I concur with Councillor Arsati's comments. We get wonderful comments about Brennan and the work he's done in the community. And if council has not had the opportunity to see the blog, the tech, what's it called, Mr. Taylor?
Techtown.
Techtown
podcast,
blog.
yeah.
It's a Tamara Small.
Takara Small is a IT journalist out of Toronto.
And it's really well done. Like, it's really very professional, and I would urge you to check that out if you have not yet. All right, so we have the recommendation to receive the update, and that is moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. Next is item 6.2, and that is Mr. Stanley, who's providing a delegation tonight regarding item C2. Mr. Stanley, whenever you're ready.
Okay, let me just share my screen.
We've got it up there now.
Excellent. Okay, so thank you, Mayor Dolan and council members. So I know that Gord Knox had kind of touched on this. Hang on, why is it not moving? Let's see. Okay. This is not working quite right for me. Hang on. Yeah, it's not moving the slides, unfortunately. Okay.
It may be perhaps if you just, I don't know whether it's our assistant clerk that has control, deputy clerk. So you just have to say next slide and they'll move it for you.
Oh, but this, I have reduced the number of slides because I felt that there were too many.
Oh,
so I wanted this to be a more focused presentation. So can I?
Excuse me, if I'm sorry to interrupt, through your worship to the delegate, you can just go through the slides that were provided to clerks and just ask to skip slides if you would like to do that then.
Oh.
Because that was, you had provided that PowerPoint presentation that has been reviewed by the clerk's office. So just as a matter of how we're progressing, we've got it ready to go. And if you provide next slide, we can progress through that.
All right. It's unfortunate because there are transitions and so on, and I had just sent you off a PDF. And perhaps in future you could clarify, because the last time I was able to control my own slides, even though it was through Zoom, and it made for a much better and clearer presentation. So
our apologies from the clerk's department, but we had requested that slides be provided to our office by 12 noon on Monday, and we did give you an extension on that.
Agreed, and I did, but I didn't know that I wouldn't have control because they've got transitions and so on that are now missing. So there'll be a lot of data, unfortunately, but we'll just manage it. Okay, so I know that Gord Knox had touched on the concept of visitors and tourists. It seems that the rationale for this interim control bylaw is really to build tourism. However, what Innisfil really does get is the visitor. Visitors pay to park at the Innisfil Beach Park and they leave. They don't spend money in Innisfil. So next slide. So don't put the cart before the horse. So in looking at this, we feel that the town really needs to create a professional tourism plan before changing any areas within Innisfil. We're not really sure why all the tourism opportunities for all of Innisfil seem to be focused on just the park. Innisfil is huge, it's the size of Mississauga. So we find that it's unacceptable to make drastic changes to land use of a vibrant, appealing, and growing waterfront community, really without sufficient analysis of the potential impact it's going to have as a tourist destination. Next slide. So just some history that I wanted to touch on. Next slide. So in 2014, lots of town hall meetings, widening and reconstruction of Innisfil Beach Road, and it was amazing. Everyone was so excited. It was going to be lined with trees and flowers and benches and so on. There was a lot of enthusiasm when we had visitors that come to come see us, and other people. They thought, oh, wow, this town is really changing. Very similar to the Institute of Planners winners, tree-lined streets and so on. But in 2015, they ripped it all up. Oh, we were told that's because truck drivers had trouble navigating and so on. But I don't see in downtown Toronto, which is a lot tighter spaces, that they're tearing down buildings, ripping up streets and so on. They're just saying to the truck drivers, you don't know how to drive, then find another driver to do it for us. And also, if you look at the town's tree policy, they're supposed to replace. They didn't. They took the trees out. Any developer will remove a tree, then they'll ask for forgiveness and pay a fine if they have to, but it will not help. So just some awareness. And next slide. So there's always this discussion around more commercial space required for downtown Alcona. And the staff report was very clear. They cited that ambience, sustainable features, public space, and a healthy atmosphere were really important characteristics for a town. And yet, if you go through all of downtown Alcona, we're not seeing any of that at all. And if this is what they're talking about when they say ambient, sustainable features, we have a lot of concern there. So our focus should be, let's fix this before worrying about extending the amount of commercial. Okay, next slide. So in the staff report, wonderful description from the Canadian Institute of Planners that they recognize dozens of streets and neighborhoods for their ambient, sustainable features, public spaces, and a healthy atmosphere. Truly, these are the great communities of our country, attracting newcomers, businesses, investment, and admirers, and certainly bringing in tourists as well. So next slide. So they cited Newmarket as one of them recently because they've had significant capital projects completed in the Main Street area, and the old town hall underwent a multi-million-dollar restoration to become the cultural hub for theater, music, and dance. Orangeville, because it has historic buildings, contextual redevelopment, and attention to the pedestrian experience. And Fredericton, because they contain historic buildings, open spaces, unique shops, people-friendly sidewalks. These, though, are really not fair comparisons. They are all on major thoroughfares. They have tons of traffic going through them. But Alcona, Innisfil Beach Road, all leads to a dead end. So we do not have the amount of traffic, and there's nothing really to bring people on down here. Alcona has only one historic building, and it's on stilts. They have no interesting buildings. It is representative of a typical unplanned urban landscape with plazas and buildings with no particular architectural interest. Clearly, the design efforts of the planners have failed. Now, we've seen beautiful illustrations. You can hire any art student to draw beautiful, beautiful illustrations of what it could look like. But honestly, planners have already told us, but they cannot actually tell a developer that's what we want it to look like. They can present it, but a developer will build what's going to suit them, that's going to be cost effective. Next slide. So, do we really need more commercial space rather than extend the commercial zoning east of 25 Side Road? Focus your efforts on the long-standing failure to achieve downtown development in Alcona's existing commercial zone. Because within Alcona, it really was never a quaint town, it was farmland. The buildings were haphazardly, they sprang up, no design, no plan. The end result, it really is a place where no one wants to linger. No restaurants, no hotels, nothing to attract tourists. Have you really abandoned now downtown Alcona because you think your salvation is going to be this little piece on Innisfil Beach Road going down to the waterfront? When people come in and they see downtown Alcona, trust me, they're not going to want to rush any further because really it would be hard to believe that anything good will ever be there. Next slide. So the Tate Economic Research Report was very interesting. In 2015, they forecasts appeared, they are saying now, clearly to be aggressive and overstate the anticipated commercial retail space demand because consumers have changed from purchasing in brick and mortar stores to online. The primary implication is a decrease in the amount of physical space required to accommodate future retail demand. In the 2015 report, they recommended an increase in warranted space of 540,000 square feet would be needed by 2021. And yet, in all that time, only 180,000 square feet of retail commercial space is being added, approved, or in approval process. We keep hearing, well, we've had 100 inquiries, 100 leads. In my own business, I've had more than that in the past year. That's all they are. It's like people walking into a store. They don't buy anything. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything until they actually buy and say, I'm going to build. That is the only thing that is of interest. If you go through, the entire report focuses on critical things. A single loaded characteristic on a street is not a good investment. And that's exactly what we hear. They say retail streets work best when stores are on both sides of the street. They also say that retail is a reactive, they follow population growth and traffic. They do not typically lead it. Creating a street with ground floor retail from scratch is very difficult. An example of great retail streets typically had historical build form that evolved over many years. That doesn't exist here. Achieving a great mixed-use district may take decades to come to fruition. Next slide. So the observations, the report, we did not feel supported this commercialization. They're very cautious in their words. Developers as well are not showing any interest in these lands because there's nothing in it for them. No population, there's not enough traffic, poor visibility, because it's a dead end. So we're really not sure how this supports your tourism strategy, if you have one, since there isn't a tourism plan really, and it's going to take decades to develop, if ever. There's lots of obstacles to making it work. And we're really not sure why this is so urgent to do now when there is no evidence it will succeed. Next slide. So, official plans, comparison. City of Toronto. Now, I do a lot of work with the City of Toronto. They identify areas for possible commercial development, put it in the official plan. Then they wait for a developer to express an interest before creating interim bylaws. The developer requests have to show plans, what they're really thinking about, and so on. And if they want to act on it, then the City of Toronto will create an interim bylaw. Innisfil, official plan, immediately want to rezone all of the areas that they believe for possible commercial development, hoping that will attract developers. It results in a loss of control over the development outcome. Developers listen to planner suggestions for setbacks, etc., but they build what they want. Planners can only control specific building code restrictions, and the result is a mishmash of styles, architecture, and look. The opportunity is emulate what larger cities are doing. Give control back to the town planners. Do not use interim control bylaws as your mechanism to realize commercial development, because that's not what attracts developers. They know what is in your official plan. Next slide. So the impact on properties if the designation actually is approved. Devaluation of property values, we have had this confirmed from several different realtors because residents don't want these houses because they don't want the possibility of commerce being beside them. Developers don't want it because there's no value in doing it. It's a dead-end street. Owners will, as a result, demand a reduction in their property taxes. The land will revert into a ghetto of old, rundown houses. Has a negative impact as well in the surrounding area. In the designated area, there is a corner house, Lakeland and Innisfil Beach Roads. It's been for sale for 3 months. They've tried several other times. There seems to be no interest from a commercial developer in that house. Just because you have a vision of what you'd ideally like to see, and we've seen all those beautiful pictures, it doesn't mean it'll become a reality. I know that Tyler Martino would love to see restaurants. Everybody would. That's a dream. If there are no developers who want this land, Why ruin the area? Because you have a dream. Next slide. So enough is enough. Stop pursuing the downtown Alcona extended commercial development plan. Fix downtown Alcona along Innisfil Beach Road, west of 25 Side Road. Create something that tourists will want to visit. Spread your planning efforts to benefit other Innisfil communities, Stroud, Cookstown, Churchill, Thornton, Lefroy. Recognize that money you've spent in this pursuit is not helping Innisfil's revenues. Cancel this interim bylaw and focus on more important Innisfil and resident concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Questions or comments for Mr. Stanley? I had one, Mr. Stanley, just that picture, a couple of pictures back of the garbage and that house. I couldn't recognize where that was.
Oh, that's the only one that actually isn't from Innisfil. I just wanted to find an example of what will become, because I didn't have enough time to drive around, but there are examples in Innisfil.
Okay, and then just one other clarification, Mr. Stanley.
Absolutely.
Thornton is in ESSA, not Innisfil.
Oh, apologies. Although it would be nice if you helped them, but okay.
Anybody else have anything? Seeing none, so mover and a seconder to receive the delegation for information, Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Sadi. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Next is Sergio Navarrado and Alessandra Picion. I'm sorry if I'm not saying your name correctly. Welcome, and whenever you're ready.
We can help you if you like.
Thank you, please.
Piccioni and Navarretta.
Thank you, Piccioni.
No worries. So who needs Netflix when you can have a Wednesday night Zoom town meeting? This is really exciting.
Can you hear me? Can you guys,
Yes, we can.
We can, okay, good. Because I'm not able to start my video. So I'll just talk, that's okay. Oh, there we go. I got video.
Okay. We're actually in the, we work in the cultural sectors in show business, but we can never follow up on that wonderful presentation by Mr. Stanley. I think he missed his calling.
Anyway, I'd like to introduce us. Sergio and I have been living in Innisfil for the past 20 years. We're both business owners in the area. We're business owners in the cultural sector. We are a young family. We have an 8-year-old son who attends school here. We have our extended family living here. We own multiple properties, businesses. We have young nephews who live, work, and go to school here as well. I love Innisfil because of its natural beauty. It's well located. There's easy access to the 400 and the GO and Toronto. And now one of the side effects of COVID-19 is that we can work anywhere. And we've been working more and more from home in Innisfil and are now planning to formally relocate our business here. I'd like to say a few words in support of the official Our Place plan on IBR east of the 25th Side Road. The vision currently is to connect it, to create an attachment to place, to create a connection to community, connectivity through fluid development is the way I interpret that. The vision is also to grow and importantly, to establish a managed level of growth and to sustain, to enhance the vitality of Innisfil's downtowns and maintain that small town feel that we all love. And to preserve the town while improving access to natural areas like the waterfront. The reason I'm so passionate about, well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I'm passionate about this is because I want to live in this town. I want to live and work and see my family grow in this town. And I have a unique vantage point because we live in close proximity to the Innisfil Beach Road and Lakelands corner. We love the beach, we love the lake, we enjoy the park, walking through the park, and we enjoy it most of the year. However, we're also at a very unique vantage point to also see this. Next slide, please. The current reality of Innisfil Beach Road and Lakelands Avenue. It's pretty much the exact opposite of what the town intends through the official plan. Instead of connection, there's a disconnection and a detachment from place. There's no connection to the town. Locals are disrupted by all of the activity that happens down at Innisfil Beach Road because of the people going to the park, the lineups, the traffic. There's no connectivity. The visitors come into town, they don't stop anywhere because there's nowhere to go. Nowhere to go that's near the park, and nowhere to go that's leading them into town. There's no growth because of this, and we see very little economic growth, and it's not sustainable because Innisfil's vision for downtown is not being enhanced. That Innisfil's downtown is not being enhanced. The small town community feel is being disrupted, and access to the natural area is also being disrupted. I mean, this past summer, I know there have been arguments that you know, to sort of solve this problem of chaos at Innisfil Beach Road and Lakelands. I've heard the argument to keep the park private, for example, but I think this past summer was a good example of making an attempt or an experiment to keep it private due to COVID-19, so that only locals were supposed to have access to the park. But I think we can all agree that experiment was not terribly successful. We literally had people picnicking on people's lawns and parking in people's driveways without permission. It was mayhem, and it wasn't really all that different from a normal year. So people are coming to the park, they are coming to the town, the cat is out of the bag. There's definitely tourism happening, but that's all directed to that one place. It's the only thing people know is that beach and that park. And it's a wonderful resource, but we're not taking advantage of it. We're not benefiting from it. It's not rippling at all into the town, and it's not helping to create place at all the way it is right now. It's also worth noting that over the past 2 decades, the park has also been a location where a lot of young people have spent time. They hang out in the park at all hours of the night. Cars go racing in and out of the park at all hours of the night, up and down the street. It's extremely disruptive. It's not peaceful, and it's not even safe. Next slide, please. This past summer, we conducted an informal petition where we took an informal petition by canvassing people in the park who were visiting. Many people were residents, 60% were residents. It was close to 100 signatures. I think we had 94 signatures. And they were overwhelmingly in favor of development. Now, I know it was a very informal petition and the wording was broad, but we pointed to the corner of where the development, where people would like to see development. And just to give it some context, there was definitely a clear understanding, and most people expressed a desire to see cafes and shops and just to have somewhere to walk to besides being in the park. Interestingly, these results are consistent with the survey that was recently done by the town. And I think it's clear that most people do want to see development at the park, at Innisfil Beach Road, close to the park. Next slide, please. Some important factors I think to keep in mind is the connection to Lake Simcoe. I've heard the argument many, many times that commercial properties west of 25th Side Road on Innisfil Beach Road are the ones to focus on, that there are commercial properties there that are not being developed. But I can't see how we can expect any development to meet the official plan's goals of connection, growth, and sustainability without access to the town's main attraction as it stands right now, which is the lake and the park. This development has the potential to create employment for youth, exciting opportunities for young people to grow with the community instead of having to leave town when they have to get their first job. It's an exciting opportunity for local businesses, entrepreneurs like us. Innisfil, as Dan Taylor illustrated earlier, is an innovation hub. It offers support for small businesses. It's made headlines because of its partnerships with Uber and the Ryerson DMZ, which is an unbelievably progressive move. It's very impressive. And the location is it's just such an exciting opportunity for entrepreneurs to capitalize on the tourism that's happening now, because it's not going to go away. It's just going to they're going to keep coming. The cat's out of the bag. People know, people are aware of this place, and they want to come and they want to find things to do. The stretch of Innisfil Beach Road close to the park is a key location for placemaking, both for locals and for visitors. And I've heard some COVID-19 concerns as well, that development is not a great idea at this time because we don't know what's going to happen with COVID-19. But at the same time, this crisis has created an influx of people wanting to come to Innisfil, wanting to live in Innisfil, wanting to visit Innisfil. And my understanding is it's also the year of the staycation. So it's going to be we can make this more of a place that people can visit and benefit from that. Next slide, please. The way I see Innisfil, and the reason I'm here, and I think the reason many of us are here, is that it's a vibrant, growing community. It's a community that welcomes young families. And you know, I think many of the objections to the development don't really take into account the interests of growing families. Young families who want to make this place their home to live and grow and work and play. It's not just a town of cottagers and retirees. That's not the whole story. It's not even half the story. The stretch of Innisfil Beach Road is essential to making the vision possible and to create a thriving economy. Growth will happen. It's going to happen. It's provincially mandated to happen. But this is our chance right now to guide that progress intelligently and to create elegant development the way that we'd like to see it and to get ahead of it. The ICB doesn't mean immediate development, but it is a signal to our future and an indication of who we want to be. And if the survey that was done recently by the town is any indication at all, this town wants to see the Our Place official plan become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pichon. Any questions or comments from members of council?
May I make some final remarks?
Quickly, if you could, please, Mr. Neville.
Yes, absolutely. It's hard to articulate how passionate I am about this because it's been 20 years in the making. I've attended as many meetings as I could over the years, and I'm super excited. And I applaud, you know, town staff and all the visionaries and all the residents that have come forward throughout the years to advise on this plan. This is not something that just popped up overnight. This is something that is a collection of everything that many of the residents have been advocating for, which is really, you know, amenities that we're really lacking right now. And I think I want to implore council to make a decision, because leadership is about making decisions, and you won't always please everybody, but we cannot allow kind of, you know, an elitist point of view to dictate the future of our town. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Seeing none, the recommendation before you is to receive as information this presentation. Could I have a mover and a second? Excuse me, Councillor Ices and Councillor Nicol, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. So that brings us to our agenda items. Our next on the agenda is our county council update and municipal associations update. And I would ask if any members have anything they'd like to bring forward. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to keep it short due to the hour and what we have on our agenda tonight. And maybe in our next council meeting, I can bring up the speed on county council. Thank you.
Oh, okay. But I think maybe Deputy Mayor, we might, like, there was one very important thing we might want to bring forward. It's, if you wanted to.
Not really.
Okay, so I will. So County Council approved the, supported the Innisfil MZO for the orbit on, and two other OPAs, one of them in Cookstown for the Paolini property and another one for the walk-up house. Those were also approved by County Council yesterday. Any other associations or anything anybody would like to bring forward this evening? Councillor Waters.
Just quickly, that my thunder was already stolen by the CAO of the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, but Rob Baldwin is the new CAO of Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. So I was just going to welcome him and let staff know and council know that he will be in charge as of January 1st, and I welcome him aboard.
Thanks, Councillor Waters. It always seems your thunder gets stolen when it comes to LSRCA. That's probably partly my fault as well. I apologize. Anyone else? I had one quick public service announcement to make, and that is in regards to South Simcoe Police. There's an opportunity currently for a representative from the town of Innisfil to join the Police Services Board. It's a 2-year term, I believe, or 4. I'm trying to remember now. I think it's a 4-year term, to be honest. And so it will go over the municipal election. So it is about a monthly meeting and then some other duties from time to time. It's a very interesting and rewarding board. I've only been on it since I've been the mayor, but really am enjoying it. And so I would encourage local residents who think that they might be interested in board governance for our police to please put your name forward, but please do it quickly because it closes November the 30th. So, or if any of you know people who you think would be great on the board, please let them know of that so we can get some applications in before November 30th. Thank you very much.
Your Worship?
Yes, Councillor Fowler.
Just want to make note of something. That item B4 tonight is a report from the pitching committee. I just want to give a bit of a background on why we made the decision we did to cancel any continued attempts at a pitch-in day until next year. We had a lot of discussions regarding the matter. We were looking at every option, safety measure, every control we could put in place. And we were very, very close to actually putting something into motion until something happened down in the York region. There was a wedding. I'm pretty sure everyone's aware that there was 49 cases confirmed of COVID-19 from one single event. Just to put it in perspective, everybody went down to Vaughan. They came back and went to York region, Peel region, Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph, Halton region, Simcoe Muskoka district, region of Waterloo, Toronto, and Durham. Now that was from one wedding where people were in a contained space. And because of that, it was just a final straw. We couldn't risk it because even with the best of intentions, if one group of people inadvertently congregate, unintentionally congregate, run into each other, it could turn into something a lot bigger. And this was the worst case scenario that we were trying to avoid. So until further notice, we're going to be meeting again in the new year to see what we can do, what the situation is, and how we can address the potential of having another pitch-in day next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. And I noticed that Councillor Payne is back, although now she's she's gone again. But I just want to welcome Councillor Payne back to the meeting. And now we'll go into our consent list. Unless there's any other updates from different boards, seeing none. So we'll go to the consent list. For those who are watching or who have not watched one of our council meetings before, all of our items are on the agenda, and it's posted about a week in advance, so people have the opportunity to read them. Welcome back, Councillor Payne. And what we do is the staff report all come with a staff recommendation. If council is okay with that staff recommendation and there's no discussion, we will, by a confirming bylaw, confirm all of those recommendations later on in the meeting. If people want to ask questions, make comments, or amend a recommendation, they can pull it and it'll go into committee of the whole, where we can have full and fulsome debate on the item. So I'll start with item A1, the special council meeting minutes of October the 21st. A2, the special council meeting and InPower and Enterprise AGM minutes. A3, the council meeting minutes from October the 28th. Keep in mind that some of these items are from the November 11th meeting that we didn't complete. Special council meeting minutes from November the 4th. And special council meeting minutes from November the 11th. B1, the Innisfil Municipal Heritage Committee report from October the 8th. B2, the Innisfil Beach Park Ad Hoc Committee from October the 20th. Councillor Orsatti.
Sorry, finding my most. Yes, please refer.
Refer by Councillor Orsatti to Committee of the Whole. B3, the School Zone Traffic Safety Advisory Committee from October the 20th. B4, the Pitch-In Committee report dated November the 5th. We've already heard from Councillor Fowler on that. B6, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee dated November the 10th. C1, the staff report regarding the COVID-19 response. This is our update number 6. Councillor Van Berkel. You want to refer that one, Councillor Van Berkel?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I need an explanation on some stuff.
Sure. Thank you. C2, the Innisfil Beach Road rezoning. Councillor Nicol.
Please.
Refer.
Yep.
C3, the Friday Harbor Lease Extension Agreement. C4, the Innisfil Beach Road Voluntary Water and Sentry Services costing. C5, the street naming for the registered plan of subdivision, 153 20th Side Road. C6, the housekeeping amendment to the emergency management program. C7, that would be the staff report 881 Mapleview Drive. Seeing none, and just to reiterate, that's the item that Councillor Ices had a conflict on. So then we have D1, the action tracking list update. D2, the economic development update. Councillor Waters.
Yes, I'd like to refer it. I have a few questions.
Bylaws, there were none received. Next, correspondence for action, F1. Councillor Nicol. Refer.
Yes, please.
And then we have a number of correspondence for information. G1, In-Services Board of Directors meeting, the Innisfil Library Board meeting, a letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, G4, Ontario Lottery Group update. And that is it. I just wanted to point out to Council the letter from Minister Clark. If you didn't have the opportunity to read it, please take a moment because it was very complimentary to the town of Innisfil. So we need a mover and a seconder as long as we're convinced that the items that are listed here match what everybody brought forward. Councillor Orsatti and Councillor Fowler, all those in favor? That's carried. So we'll go then to we'll move into committee of the whole, motion to resolve into committee. That would be Councillor Payne and Councillor Van Berkel, all those in favor? That is carried. And our first item is item B2, and that would be Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Worship. Just bear with me while I just pull that up on my screen. Item B2, in regards to the park, recommendation number 3. I have an amended recommendation for that item, and my seconder will be Councillor Alex Waters because he sits on the Innisfil Beach Park. In the report, it states that staff will decide how far the resident-only on-street parking strategy will extend. And I would like to make a recommendation that staff bring a recommendation to council on how far the resident-only street parking strategy will extend. And the reason being that I think that staff bringing these recommendations back to council will give us an opportunity, especially as ward councillors, for those that impact our area, to be able to have some input on the recommendations from staff, and all of council to just review those. Rather than getting in a decision where staff have made the decision, we haven't had the input, and then it comes back to us and we have to try and handle it afterwards. So my seconder on this amendment is Councillor Alex Waters.
Thank you. So any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? And then could I ask the same mover and seconder for the motion as amended?
Yes.
Councillor Orsatti and Councillor Waters?
Yes.
Okay, any questions on the entire motion now as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor. Next is item C1, and that was the COVID response, and that was pulled by Councillor Bill Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Number 2 in the recommendation, that the consolidation of the capital project PLN 34 municipal identity and wayfinding signage program, PKS 345 Parks Road and End signage program be approved. I've had a couple of calls on this, and I actually, Ms. Jenkins explained it to me, but I'd like her to explain it, you know, to our constituents where that funding is coming from, because it's pretty hard to find in the binder in our budget. So if she could give us the explanation that she gave me, I think most people will be satisfied.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Through your worship to Councillor Van Berkel. Yes, our apologies. We didn't include the amount being transferred in the staff report. However, we are basically consolidating the remaining funds from PLN 34, which amounts to just over $6,000, and transferring that over to PKS 345. PLN 34, the Municipal Identity and Wayfinding Signage Program, has been an ongoing program for a number of years and dates back to at least 2012, if not earlier. We've been transitioning that program over and combining it with our Parks and Road End signage program, which started in 2019, just due to efficiencies and similar scopes of work. This will allow us to complete this project with better economies of scale by combining the budgets. So there is no financial impact with respect to additional funds being approved or anything like that. We're just basically moving funds from one project and consolidating them into another.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Anything else, Councillor Van Berkel?
No, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Just procedurally, I'm wondering if there was a seconder to get this on the floor. I have no problem with the conversation otherwise.
Okay, seconder is Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this staff report? I just wanted, Mr. Rayner.
I expect you were going to say the same thing I was, Your Worship, which is just a huge thank you to staff who continue to pivot and adapt to these challenging times. This staff report, and I think continues to be a comprehensive a collection of the amazing efforts that staff are making to continue to serve our community in these really challenging times. And I just wanted to particularly thank our health and wellness catalyst, Ms. Sandy Foster, who continues to quarterback our COVID efforts. And I also in this report particularly wanted to thank the finance team. This also includes, of course, our projection to year end, and thankfully with the province's Safe Restart grant funding, it looks like we won't be in too bad a shape come the end of the year, which I think is great, particularly given the amount of fees that were waived and interest and the reduced revenues that didn't come in, of course, this year. But just wanted to extend my appreciation to staff for their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. Well said. And it's unfortunate that the public can't see the amount of work that goes on with the all the staff throughout this COVID pandemic, and the fact that the goalposts keep moving. So every time we think we've got something nailed down, then something changes. But as a member of the board of the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, I can tell you that Dr. Gardner and his staff are so impressed with the assistance that they get from our health and wellness catalyst, from Ms. Foster, and also from our legal team, from Louise Verbosch, that helps with unraveling the language in all of the legislation that seems to change daily. So we've been very fortunate to have such a strong team throughout this entire pandemic. And I know that it helps me sleep at night knowing that we've got these incredible people on the front lines. So thank you. And thank you for pulling that, Councillor Van Berkel. Next is item C2, and that would Councillor Nicol.
Sorry, Worship. I'm just procedurally. Did we vote on the last item on the C1?
You are my procedure police tonight, and thank you. I need you. I've been in interviews since 8 o'clock this morning, so I'm a little fuzzy tonight, and I apologize for that. So all in favor of the item that Councillor Van Berkel pulled, that's C1, and that's carried. Thank you. And Councillor Nicol, and your seconder is Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just thank you, Councillor Fowler, for getting this on the table. Just a few comments if I could make just to start, and then kind of see where the table goes if that's appropriate. I've been thinking about this obviously not just this past week, but for a couple of weeks now, and I wondered, is this time sensitive, and should we possibly think about pausing this for the year to gauge the COVID rebound? But realistically, this vision is not changing what has been a years-long process for this council. I'm glad that council received the Innisfil Beach Road urban design study today from MB Todd Hunter and Ken Salt Tatham, which dates back to 2006 and details the public consultation already started way back then. On page 20 of that report, it shows the waterfront precinct was identified for retailing to create a pleasant character to promote pedestrian traffic. It just further reinforces that this has been a long time coming already. Honestly, in looking back to 2006, when this began, the council of the day had the vision and started this journey for Innisfil Beach Road. And luckily, we still have members from then, including your worship, Mayor Dolan, our Deputy Mayor Davidson, and Councillor Van Berkel, who were involved in voting for that visionary step back then. The three of you have been involved with this and developing Innisfil Beach Road all along. This is nothing new. I hope that we as council continue to improve the amenities of this town and the Innisfil Beach Road plan to give all of the residents of Innisfil what has been in the planning for almost 15 years. If I can summarize it properly, as Taylor, Alessandra, and Sergio stated it, show the leadership, please build something for the youth, for the families, connect all of our residents, a destination for all of us. Staff and council have addressed the concerns on the Lakelands areas, and Innisfil continues to innovate. And I think we need to keep moving forward tonight and plan for the future now. Again, this is almost 15 years in the making, and deferring it for a few more weeks or months really does seem unnecessary, especially with this involvement with council for so many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been following this for quite some time now, and I'm listening to both sides of the argument. And everybody seems to have a good point with what they want in their ideal situation, but unfortunately, reality is never going to be such. When it comes down to this, there's questions that I as a councillor, would need answered before I would support this. Now, the number keeps on coming up that of the existing retail space, literally 1 square foot out of 3 is being used. So the idea that we have in place right now is not working as well as we would like it to. So expanding it down to the end, to Lakelands, to me, it just seems like we're just increasing the bubble where the plan we have isn't working. If we created a district, for example, where we designated the area as a place for restaurants, art galleries, coffee shops, make it something specific that we can control as council in town, so that we don't have, hypothetically, a laundromat beside a convenience store beside, you know, a t-shirt shop. We want something creative. We have to create, like I guess the best term is a district. Make it specific to enhance the area, and we have to have that control. If we don't, right now, what I see in the plan is, let's open it up, we'll see what businesses come, what developers come, and that's not direction. That's just increasing the viable space when we are not using to our full capacity what we have already. I can see the need, like Sergio, I was on the phone with Sergio, and I never had it earlier today. He was telling me that, you know, he has ideas that he wants to put forth, an art gallery, a restaurant, some place beyond just the bare minimum. And I'm not seeing it. I see the vision. I don't see the implementation of it. And I don't see the control over it that we as council can reassure the public with. So, I mean, until we get a firmer grasp on this, I have to agree with Councillor Nicol, like, you know, put it off a little bit. Let's refine it. Let's tweak it. Let's put it into a play that we can designate what will be there, as opposed to allowing people to come in and fill in an empty space, what they see as their best advantage. Thank you.
So just a point of order, Councillor Fowler, you seconded the motion that's on the floor, so you probably don't want to do that if you're not supporting it.
He wanted to pull it, so I supported him pulling it to open the discussion.
Okay, so but if you're not going to vote in favor of it, you might want to get another seconder. Mr. Parkin?
Your Worship, I believe there's no rule against voting as a seconder. Sometimes people tend to get a replacement if they feel that it's warranted, but I don't think there's a formal rule against that.
Okay, you can't move it and vote against it though, is that right?
I believe that one is right, more so that you shouldn't move a motion if you're going to vote against it. It's
great.
Contrary to the procedural rules, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol.
It was just in response, maybe I wasn't articulate enough. I was against deferring this any further. I think that this has already been years and years in the planning. I think that the nuts and bolts of this will come through. What it is just setting the parameters to get things rolling. It's no different than 25 years ago when Council of the Day decided to buy parts of the Innisfil Beach Park and started building that. They had to have the intestinal fortitude and the vision to begin the process. It's not about what exactly is going to be there. It's just about saying this area is going to be a commercial residential hub for the community going forward. So just if I wasn't quite clear, that wasn't my intent. I'm trying to say I would rather not defer this. If council has that will, then by all means let's defer it and let people absorb it a little bit longer. But again, we're talking 15 years in the making to get to this point. So that's my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Berkel and then Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Your Worship. You're absolutely right. It's been in the making for a long time, Councillor Nichols, and I remember when it was first brought up. I have nothing against the development, absolutely nothing, because I think it's not going to happen overnight, and eventually with the orbit coming and whatever else, that we're going to need something. A downtown, and this will be a big part of a downtown. So I really do believe it's going to, enhances, and it's going to, all the studies that's been done and the deputations that we have, whether it's for or against 50-50, whether it's going to be utilized or not. I think it will be with the orbit coming. There's going to be, over the next few years, there's going to be 30-some thousand people moving into Innisfil, hopefully. And so I think we need a downtown. My problem here is, more than anything, is that we looked at this 3 months ago and we deferred it till next May. Why do we bring this back now? This is almost like, council has nothing to say here. Whatever we said, we deferred for, 8-9 months or a year. We bring it back in 3 months. Is it councillor driven? Is it staff driven? Is it development driven? I don't know. I'm like, perception is 9/10 of anything we do, and this sure doesn't look like it's council driven, and I have a problem with that. As far as the project itself, I don't have a problem with, because I do believe that we need to enhance that part of the town, and we have given the concessions to where we said we'll leave the lakeshore alone, which was a big thorn in my side, but that's been done. So if this would have come back in February or March, I would have had absolutely no problem with it, because I would have felt this is what council wanted to do. But right now, I don't feel that way.
Mr. Kane, did you want to speak to why it came forward now?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. And just to clarify more than anything, so the August resolution of council to extend the interim control bylaw by a year, that's essentially a standard planning practice, not just in Innisfil, but across many municipalities, and it comes from its roots in the Planning Act. So, the legislation says that you can extend interim control bylaws for up to a year, and that tends to be the default practice. And then what follows from that is that the year is to give time for that process and to try and respond to any feedback and research along the way. If you can do that sooner, that's the preference in many cases for interim control bylaws, is that it's a pretty blunt tool. So you want to leave people, you want to give people certainty sooner rather than later. You don't want to leave people hanging any longer than you have to. The idea is to hit the pause button, but not be afraid to unpause or to press play again, once that research and once that background study has been done. So that renewal in August was done, in standard practice, as a default 1-year extension. It wasn't to suggest, and I apologize for any confusion, it wasn't to suggest that council wouldn't be considering it for a year. The idea is to, deal with these matters sooner, particularly when it's of community interest and when people don't know if they're zoned residential or commercial. So, thankfully for the hard work for staff and guidance, we've been able to come to council sooner rather than later so that we can get a decision, hopefully for those residents sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. Currently, I just need there's one question I'm going to ask, and that is, wasn't there a survey that was ended as of today? And council, if it did end today, council hasn't seen the results of that survey. We seem to refer to surveys when certain times when we need them, and other times we tend to ignore them. The other thing, I had a business person call me this past week. They've got a 900 square foot spot they're renting for $3,500 a month approximately. Their taxes are $6,000 a year. They checked the building next door, which is 2 stories, has dentist office, lawyer's office, DMZ in it, I guess. And they're only paying $17,000. And also this year, one thing that's happening in the small business world, Premier Ford has spoken about it, is the COVID insurance addition being added to so many small businesses right now. And we're not talking at 10%, we're talking 50 and 100% increases in insurances. And they're saying it's COVID related. I'll give you an example. Mine was $12,000 a year and it was going to $20,000 a year. And I said, why? COVID related was the only answer I could get. It's all COVID related. I fought, I got it changed. However, my insurance, I'm only open half the time, half the staff, half the revenue, but none of that was taken into consideration. And Mr. Ford has said many times to the insurance company, knock it off, and they're totally ignoring him. So no business is going to open in Innisfil. Once you want to open a restaurant with a license next to the water, your insurance will probably be $30,000, $40,000 a year, plus your rent and leaseholds. Trust me, they're not going to make it. We're not coming out of this economy for a few years. I don't think there's a rush. I think it's a great idea maybe for that area. I just think it's premature. We need to slow down and listen to the people first. They're the ones who live there, and they're the ones that are going to have to deal with the problems. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Pierce. Did you want to answer the question about the survey? And I apologize. I did have a note that I was supposed to go to you to show the results of the survey, and I was remiss.
That's all right. I'm happy to present them if it would benefit the discussion. If I could share my screen, I have 3 slides. It's very brief. Don't have permission yet. There we go. Can everyone see the first slide with 2 images on there? Thank you. So with the approval of the ICB in May 2019, staff have been carrying forward work to undertake studies and communicate with the public in preparing a replacement zoning. Since 2019, we've met with residents, provided public engagement opportunities, and undertaken studies and prepared a recommendation. Part of this process is preparing and sharing new visual materials with further feedback solicited from engaged residents for the benefit of council's deliberation on the matter. The following is a brief overview with a fuller summary of results already made available on Get Involved in Innisfil and to the public. As a quick overview of who participated, nearly 120 respondents provided their input representing various areas of the town within relation to the subject lands. Staff suggests the responses reflect the positions, I should say, of our most engaged residents on this issue. Staff note the majority of responses came in shortly after the survey was published. The survey shows a majority of supportive responses for the visualized zoning bylaw than unsupportive ones. And I've very briefly compressed the information into one sheet. We asked residents to respond to statements on the suitability of shops in this location, willingness to frequent shops along the street, whether changes would result in a more desirable street, the appearance of safety and comfort in the visualizations, particularly in the evening, and whether or not they considered it to enhance the character of Innisfil Beach Road. So the values on the side that you're seeing here are those respondents who said that they definitely agreed or they partially agreed. And if I could take just another moment to add some additional insight, digging further into the data reveals substantially increased support for the statements when we looked at Alcona residents who weren't immediately within walking distance of the park, with values ranging between 70 and 84% support. And with that, I'll stop my share.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Davidson, follow up?
Okay, screen keeps moving on me. First of all, okay, I see your survey. It was very dense. 118 respondents that you say were done. It's a very small percentage of the population in the area. It should be closer to 400 people for every 1,000 to carry a 99% statistical certainty. This was brought to my attention. Also, one of the biggest problems that I heard tonight is that there's no architectural control. And let's face it, you walk down Alcona Main Street and there is no architectural control. I remember dealing with this when I was a councillor 12 years ago. Tried to bring it in and it just didn't fly. If you're going to have this vision, I think it's definite that architectural controls be brought in and that council has to stay, not staff. Council is the one that has to deal with the residents as we move forward in this. And right now, as Councillor Van Berkel said, is this staff driven or is this council driven? And I feel like it's being staff driven. I would like to see this survey, let the public see it, have time to think about it. If the survey they feel represents enough people, which my own feeling is it doesn't. So my point is that I appreciate you putting the survey up there tonight, which closed at 5 o'clock today, I think. So I'm not against it. I just think we're rushing this a little bit too much and we need some time for our residents who are going to live there and enjoy it to have thoughts and then get back to council on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms. Nordstrom?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor's questions and points in terms of architectural control. Any development that would happen if the zoning would approve would go through a comprehensive site plan review process and be looked at against our urban design guidelines to achieve just that. Good design is key here. As well, in terms of the input from the public, the survey that was posted in advance of the agenda going live, that survey just represents one of many forms of engagement that has been happening since May of 2019. There's been other surveys and open forums on Get Involved. And that survey that was put forward was also directed to those who have been involved to date, who have attended the open house that we had at Town Hall just before COVID, as well as the public meetings, and have expressed an interest in the project. And while 118 residents might not seem like a statistically significant amount of people, it is more than the amount of people that you would get at an open forum or a delegation format. So they represent the voices of people who may not feel comfortable coming in and expressing their interests. So we were encouraged to see that 118 people who are in close proximity to the subject lands did reach out and give their thoughts on the survey that are available, have been made available since noon today on Get Involved.
Thank you, Ms. Nordstrom. I just wanted to say that that I've been around long enough to know that when people really don't like something, that's when we have to lift the wall up at the town. That's when we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Usually is when it's something they don't like, not when it's something they do like. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wonder if Mr. Taylor is still here. If there have been any concrete inquiries of businesses that would move in if, you know, something was built there.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Sure. Well, I mean, as you can appreciate it, at this point, we're not marketing that end of the downtown Alcona or the extension towards the water. You know, we're getting solid interest, and as I said, there's some behind the scenes development happening right now in the current area. You know, predicting the future, as they say, is a mug's game. However, I'm quite confident if we followed through on the type of vision that's in place and developed accordingly. And others, I think, have said this already. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. These things take time. That there would be strong demand, but that's the state of the nation at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I had some questions about the mixed-use zoning. I was under the impression that this zoning is particularly unique in that it allows a whole mix of different things. And I'm wondering, because this will be a long-term project, the residential part of it, those people that are there living in their homes, how does that affect them in how they would their property taxes change? Would there be different restrictions on them being able to build a deck on their house? And so maybe some of I could get some answers on the zoning that's proposed.
Sure, absolutely. Ms. Nordstrom?
Yes, so the proposed uses are quite a way set back from the existing residential that's there. And in terms of the existing residential within the subject lands itself, there wouldn't be any tax implications on that until there's building permits. Is generally how MPAC has been assessing tax rates, but in terms of the residential uses that are within the subject lands, those residential uses can continue. And the effect of the zoning would be to provide certainty for those mix of residential and commercial uses that the OP is seeking for those lands.
So if we as council approve this change in zoning and the market conditions are such that there's no demand, nothing changes, those residents that are there can just continue to live as they always have.
Yeah, through your worship, to Councillor Ices, yes. Residents can continue to maintain their properties and live in their residential properties so long as they choose to do so.
And just follow up, is that different than the areas west of 25th on Innisfil Beach Road, as far as zoning, and there are some residential houses there, but there are fewer. But
yeah, through you, your worship. So the zoning being proposed here has been tailored to capture the uniqueness of this the subject lands and their locational uniqueness. But certainly anywhere along Innisfil Beach Road where there are existing residential uses, they would continue to be permitted as like legal non-conforming uses. So they would continue to be grandfathered under those same principles.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks you for your patience for my technical difficulties tonight. I think my blood pressure's gone down to 103. All's well. Anyway, just about the park. Number one, about the survey. Is the survey only going to the residents in that area? And if so, why not all of Alcona and all the way down to Sandy Cove even, to get people's opinions? Because I know of many Sandy Covers that go down there and would absolutely love, including myself, a place that I could go to, have a nice lunch, buy some nice clothes or a pair of shoes or something in a nice boutique that's unique instead of having to drive all the way to Aurelia. That would be amazing. So it's not just about, and I know the people live in their homes and whatever, and that's where they want to stay, and hopefully they can continue to stay, maybe in the new apartment. But it's about what Innisfil has to offer. And people are saying, well, there's not going to be any outsiders. I totally disagree with that, because I know that if we go to Aurelia, I'm sure that people in Bradford or anywhere else in the surrounding area will come. And like the whole, I think that statement is build it and they will come. And it's so true. It's just, I just think we need some place where you can go to the park and enjoy the water and still be able to go to a nice place to eat and shop. So I can't see anything wrong with this. I'm excited about this, to be honest with you. And I really think that this will work. It really will work. We just have to sort of get our minds out there and get your imagination going, folks. And I think it's going to be a great thing. I really do.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to ask Mr. Pierce to answer that question about the where the survey was.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Payne. So the survey was provided through social media. It was published through social media to any resident of the town, and we also provided direct links to previously engaged residents, particularly those around the park.
Follow up, Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Worship. Where do we find the survey?
I think it's over now. I think it closed today, Councillor Payne, about 11 o'clock.
Well, okay, for something this important, should it not go further on?
I'll leave it to either Ms. Nordstrom or Mr. Pierce to answer that.
Yeah, so the results from each the survey is up on Get Involved with the visuals that were presented. As well, those visuals were shared with the focus group from representatives from the local real estate and building communities. So it was available for almost 2 weeks online, and so with the results that we received, those are the ones that we were able to post today and provide with live up-to-date feedback since this has started back in May of 2019.
Follow up, Councillor Payne. Oh, you're on mute now, Councillor.
Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have a really good newspaper anymore, and there's a lot of seniors in Innisfil that are technically, well, not really great at the computers and whatnot, including myself. So it's really difficult for them to get that information, but if you're going by the internet, you're not getting a lot of the people that would be using the park. I would think, because I know the seniors wouldn't know where to look. And it's the seniors here in this area anyway, that really enjoy going to the park and even going picnicking and swimming and walking. So 2 weeks really isn't a long time. I kind of wish it had been a little longer, because I think you would have got a lot more people. But thank you, that's just my comment.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. We can take that back to communications and perhaps they can come up with some new strategies, particularly for Sandy Cove. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make a bunch of points. First of all, is that when I was talking to Councillor Rosati this afternoon, she informed me that she did an informal survey of the people who live along Innisfil Beach Road between the 25th and the beach. And she said she found out that most of the people there are renters. So those lands, the people who are living along there are renting. They're not the owners. That would suggest to me that most of the people bought those properties as investment properties and who are just waiting for the town to say, you know, move ahead so they can sell the properties off to developers to do, I think, what is a creative and a wonderful opportunity for the town. Second point is that, you know, we ask staff to do a survey. They do a survey and then comes back, says that's not enough in terms of the number of people. So we have 100 and odd people who were in favor. 70% of them said they were in favor of this development because they want to be able to walk down to the neighborhood. Then we also had the informal survey that was done by Sergio and his group of 100 people, who majority of people said they would love to have that type of economic opportunity along that strip. So we have lots of people for this. We have 3 people on Lakelands who are against it because they want to protect their private little gnome that they have on Lakelands. The other thing is that they portrayed this as strictly a tourist strategy. I don't see that at all. I see it as a tourist strategy. I see it as an economic development strategy, and I see it as a placemaking opportunity for the community. This is something the community wants. They talk about lack of traffic because it's a dead end. Well, a good majority of people get to the park, they walk down there. I walk along that all the time, and you always see families in their strollers walking. You know, I'm walking away from the park because I'm coming in from the other end, but they're walking to the park. So the traffic is not only vehicle traffic, but it's also pedestrian traffic in terms of how people get there now. And during the summertime, now that we've pushed a lot of that parking out, are walking down into Innisfil Beach Park. So there's lots of traffic in that area that we whine that, you know, we have these visitors who I guess aren't really tourists, according to some of the comments earlier, that that they don't spend any money. Well, they don't spend any money because there's nothing there. They have to walk all the way back out to the 25th in order to spend their money. So they're not going to walk that far. So having that economic zone along there would increase the economic opportunities for businesses, for salaries, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I see that as an economic driver of doing that. Plus, in terms of tourism, we have lots of tourism in Innisfil. We have Big Bay Point. Those people, you know, are above the average income, and they're looking for other places to go. I think they would come down. I think people from Barrie would then come down, as opposed to us going the opposite direction to get to downtown Barrie. They just spend millions of dollars on renovating their downtown, and here we are squabbling over, you know, a small section, the best section of Innisfil Beach Road to develop, because it has the beach, it has the park next to it, it has the beach, it has water activities, you know. So I think it's really quite important economically for that. So I think, you know, it's important that we go ahead with this, because I agree with Councillor Payne that you know, I was told one time that by one of the Lakelands residents that, you know, if I want a restaurant, I should go to Barrie. Well, I shouldn't have to go to Barrie. I should be able to walk from my home to go to a nice restaurant that's down there. And I think she agrees with me. And I think that what a more wonderful place to be able to sit across from nature with trees and people enjoying themselves than in that spot there. You know, the rebuttal on from some of the presentations that we had says that, you know, you need to have buildings on both sides. Well, you know, having the park across it is a wonderful viewing point. And even Mr. Knox said that even though he doesn't like I don't think he likes the commercial part of this, because he did suggest 3-story brownstones would be a wonderful thing to go in here, all residential, no commercial. Well, you know, it's higher density, which is good. It's residential, which is good. But now you're going to ask all those people to walk out of their beautiful brownstone condos to walk back to west of the 25th to go have a coffee when you could be stepping outside across in the park. So I think there are so many positive things about this that we should go with the original intent. I had an email from past Councillor Boynton, and he said he voted for this along with Councillor Van Berkel and yourself and the Deputy Mayor years ago, and he doesn't understand why we haven't moved forward on this. And I was hoping to have him do a deputation tonight, but it was a little too late to ask. So I'm most definitely for this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I think it's an economic strategy, a tourism strategy, and a community place strategy. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Orsatti, and then Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you. It's my head is spinning in a lot of different directions. So I'm going to start with, I see Councillor smiling because I know I can take a lot of airtime. I think no one, has put more effort into the care and concern for this area than myself. When the interim control bylaw first came out, I believe we voted on it it came out a year ago and then had to come back in, August. And then we voted differently than how staff had recommended. And so it's been an extension. So I really think it's 15 months that this has been before us, 15 months that residents have been held who live in Innisfil Beach Road and parts of Hastings in a frozen state, in turmoil, that they feel that they would like to have a decision to be able to move on with their life, because it's very unsettling to them. When this started, I went and knocked on every single door on Innisfil Beach Road. I took the literature on the interim control bylaw. I took my business card. I left notes on doors when I couldn't reach people that, sharing the information. Please call me with your comments. I'd like to hear from you. Those that I did speak to, as Councillor Waters had said, many had told me that they don't own the house, they rent. And I said, I still would like to, their opinion matters. They're renting and they're living along there. I then went a little further along Lakelands. I went up, made sure that I did the whole back of Hastings on the north side. And some residents said, well, it doesn't impact me. And I said, well, it will, because this will be behind you. So I care about what you think about this. I had one resident who said, hey, include my house, show me the money, I'm gone. And the others who said that they didn't feel it impacted them. And then a couple that showed up for an open forum, they were involved in that. Their concern was access to one of the laneways, and they didn't seem to be concerned too much afterwards. And I left my card, I left my business card. I asked for the input, so I made that effort. I also listened to the residents, the Stanleys. They put together a very good argument and helping us in council to understand the impact that it made to those homes on the water. We listened. I campaigned for them. I fought for them. We agreed to remove their homes, those 5 homes on the water, from the interim control bylaw, and to put them back to residential. So we listened. But the petition, I went back on that petition that was signed, that they took all the time to get. I looked at that and I read the top of the petition. I believe there was 67 names, one was crossed out, so 66 had signed the petition. And that petition was to remove the 5 homes on the water and remove them off interim control bylaw. It was not about the mixed use downtown quarter or extension of the quarter. So it's probably going to be surprising to staff or to council and probably some residents, and I apologize if I'm going to disappoint them. but I've had a paradigm shift in my view on this. I took a stance before. I even was ready tonight to make a recommendation to defer this item, that we needed more time to think about it. But I thought about those residents that are living on Innisfil Beach Road that want that interim control lifted. They want a resolution, that we make a decision. If we think that this is a good idea to have a unique character place that our residents can shop in and experience, then it's something that we need to vote on. Councillor Van Berkel, I hear that you think that this is a good idea. When we got the email from Councillor Boyton, which I believe went to clerks and will be part of the document afterwards, I called him because we also received late today the Innisfil Beach Road Urban Design and Guideline Study. And I called him because he was on council back in 2007. And I asked him, could you please explain to me this and why you were so passionate about it and some details. He told me that there was, including council, 100 residents and council that got together. They separated in 4 groups. Residents put their ideas forward. They all 4 different groups, they all came back together, and all of their vision for the downtown corridor, both commercial and residential, they all matched. And they went from the 20th Side Road down to the lake. And they talked about condos and the rest of that. So, you know, I thought that we needed more time to take a look at this, but I'm now looking at that this goes back to 2007. There was 100 groups, 100 people, 4 groups voting on that. There's been the other data. My husband and I'll just share, if I can just have a little bit more time, Your Worship, if that's okay, or do I need to hand over to someone else? Okay, so a couple of other things. You know, I'll have some questions for staff as well, but I went out of town and went to Niagara-on-the-Lake. And when I was there for 2 days, I had a paradigm shift because I said to my husband, I love this. And I love going in these boutique shops and the cafes and the art galleries. That's what's described in this report for the characteristics and the uniqueness of this. In fact, it even has, I looked at in this permitted uses, I was happy to see that staff listened to my recommendation, my concerns before. They removed taxi stands, they removed service centers, and they made it the unique things. They even reference in here that if unique characteristics that they would have, and also that if there was empty storefronts, they would work with our local artists in having displays set in those until the right fit tenants went in. And if you wanted to be in a condo in Innisfil, do you want to, and I'm not putting down another developer, do you want to be in one that's on Innisfil Beach Road facing Sobeys, or do you want to be in one? I would love the opportunity, if I could afford it, to live in something near the park. I can't afford to live in the water, but I would like that experience. So I think that we've, you know, I'm now looking that we have like about, 15 months into this. And, I do have a couple of questions for staff, but I can let another councillor speak and then come back to this, Your Worship, but just allow me to collect my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We are going to have to ask for a motion to extend past the hour of closure. It is 3 minutes to 10 o'clock. And then that's moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Waters. So we think that we still got 2 more items at least. So we'll let this conversation go on just a little bit longer, but then we're going to have to call the vote because we still have a number of items to go to. So I'm going to say extend to 11, but hopefully we won't be here that long. All in favor of the extension? That's carried. Okay, Councillor Sadi.
Sorry, thank you. I thought you were going to let another councillor speak and then come back to me. Do you want me to continue on?
I didn't see any other hands. So, oh, sorry. Yep, there are more hands. Here we go. Okay. I think it was Councillor Van Berkel was next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to be quick. And you're right. We voted on this, I think, back in 2006. We voted on a vision. Everybody had, you know, I think at that time said that, you know, a vision would, a plan with a vision is a dream, and one without a vision, it becomes a nightmare. So that's what we, you know, that's what we basically voted on. And it's come to fruition. Right now, we're ready to do some planning. And I agree with all this, and I still do. I think, you know, we need it, and I just said that, you know, the town is growing, and I'm not worried about parking because, you know, there's ways to overcome that. You can build parking garages. There's lots of room, you know, on Innisfil Beach Road next to the hardware stores, big open lots. You can build a 10-story parking spot as far as that goes. So those are not concerns for me. My only concern was that it's like, this was just done in August. Why couldn't we have waited till in the new year? It feels to me like our, like council is being ignored. That's my only thing. As far as what we're doing there, I don't have a problem with that. I just like council to be in control. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And council will vote tonight and definitely be in control. So whatever that vote is. Councillor Feller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, my concerns are in line with our deputy mayor. When it comes to architectural control, the idea of opening it up so blindly, and I understand Ms. Nordstrom said that there's a certain standard that has to be followed or kept. But if we cannot have any sort of control over what the environment looks like or how it appears, the uniformity of it, it's going to turn into the Wild West. I just, you know, you can't, it doesn't matter what's there. If you can make it look uniform, you can give it a theme, give it a direction, give it a purpose. But at this point in time, we're more concerned about getting the people there than what's going to happen after they get there and the buildings are built and what they look like, because they're meeting a generalized standard of what they should be. I'd like a little more control. I agree with Deputy Mayor Davidson. We need, as council, to say, this is what our idea is, this is what the public wants us to do, this is how we do it, or this is the theme that we're going with, this is the district we're creating. Until that point in time, it's basically, hi, we're changing the designation. If you want to build there, great, go build there, but you know, it has to be ABC, and then you can fit into the cookie cutter image. I don't like that. That doesn't create a district. It doesn't create an area. It doesn't create a theme which will draw people in as a space where they can walk along and feel comfortable. It's going to be mishmash, and that it doesn't sit right with me.
Ms. Nordstrom?
Yes, through your worship, through to Councillor Fowler's comments. So yes, again, through the zoning, to avoid sort of piecemeal and ununiformity is the intent of bringing forward the mixed use zoning that's before you tonight, to establish those, you know, placemaking principles right within the provisions of the bylaw, as well as the urban design guidelines that are in place that will be reviewed through site plan to ensure that the uniqueness and placemaking and cultural aspects of this distinct sort of Main Street vision are upheld as development applications come in.
Thank you. And I would suggest too that the items, the permitted uses and the staff report, Councillor Feller, if there was something in there that gave you heartburn, you could propose an amendment to have that particular use withdrawn off the list, if that's helpful. And I'm going to go to the next person, and we're going to keep new information, please, and not repeating stuff we've already said before, if that's at all possible. Thank you, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Not to steal Councillor Orsatti's stage here. Just one final comment, just to say on what I'm thinking. So what I've heard here from Councillor Van Berkel and Deputy Mayor is that they like the idea. They just want to wait. But again, I'm confused as it was the 2006 council that were the ones that started us down this path 15 years ago. I understand Councillor Fowler has some concerns with the complete designs, but as staff have alluded, that will come. We will control that. So should we wait? No. The Health and Wellness Center was a great idea. Should we have waited? No. The IRC, was it a great idea? Should somebody have waited? No. That was an amazing thing. Town Hall, the police station, Kempfell Base School, Uber, all great ideas. And this council and previous council have made the right decision for all of the town. I would really hope that we would be all unanimous in this decision to see the vision and begin that growth and that change at Innisfil Beach Road on the east side of the 25th. So I hope that council has the fortitude and sees the value in this. Again, it's a long process. To this point, it's 15 years to here, and it's going to be another 10, 15 years before that entire vision, I'm sure, comes to light anyway. So, but we need to start somewhere. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Then we'll go back to Councillor.
I think Councillor Nicol covered that. You know, I don't think we're in May, we're not going to be any further than we are now. We're going to have the same opinions. We're going to have the same people advocating and same people, you know, arguing against it. I don't think we're going to be any further in May than we are today. So I think, you know, I'm glad that it's going to come to a vote. And if people vote against it, just remember that if you think it's a good idea and you want to put a nail in the coffin that it won't come back, I guess that's their prerogative. But I think it's a good idea. I agree with Councillor Nicol that we should, if it's a good idea, we should vote on it like everything else we voted on in terms of what he just suggested were good ideas. They need time to plan, and we have the controls. We can implement the controls to satisfy Councillor Fowler's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that for control, all planning applications come back to the town and council votes on them. We vote on the design, we vote on everything, and planning staff, if they are setting the guidelines as they have in this document, I see that council will have that control to vote on those. Also, I wanted to ask staff, planning staff, Ms. Nordstrom or Mr. Pierce, what was the date that we first started this interim control bylaw? When was it in place? Because that's when we started all this. It wasn't 3 months ago. It wasn't about 15 months ago. Anybody have that date?
Ms. Nordstrom or Mr. Pierce?
It was
Yes.
a year, wasn't it, that it was brought back to council in 1 year?
Through your worship, to Councillor Sadi's question, it was, the ICB was put in place originally in May 2019. And then as a result of COVID and there being a pause on planning matters for a few months, it was brought back in August of 2020.
Okay.
And so the extension that was granted back in August was for that initial remainder of that 2-year period, which would be May 2021.
Okay, and just while I have you, Ms. Nordstrom, another question. One of the, I think it was maybe Mr. Stanley, I can't remember, or someone else who said, why don't we wait to act on interest, then create an interim control bylaw? Is it done in the reverse way? I'm just thinking like, to leave this and then go back to it all over again only when there's interest, when this is probably this is putting in a vision that probably won't happen for about 20 years. I didn't know if it can work in the reverse that way. And then I just wanted to remind council as well, you know, I received a lot of opposition about the affordable housing building that's at 813 Innisfil Beach Road. And it is beautifully landscaped, and it now has 54 housing units of affordable living to our residents. And it fits in, you know, to the neighborhood. It's sometimes we fear something until it works. And then we realize that most of our fears are gone. And I love to shop in those downtown boutiques. That's what I go out of my way for. Councillor Payne, I think I'll be there with you shopping, because it draws, women do like that. We do like the individual characteristic areas, and we will go out of our way for it. And I feel that the young fellow who asked for it, he is the youth, he is our future. And I believe that our residents deserve that opportunity to have that in their own town. So this is a total paradigm shift. I've done my homework, I've looked at it. I left all the information to residents, and the only concern other than excluding the ones on Lakelands is please make a decision so that this can be removed from those residents who are on Innisfil Beach Road that would like a decision made so they can move on.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you all why you ended up with that package on your doorstep today. So I guess that one of the benefits of being a pseudo hoarder is I have boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of staff reports. And one of my COVID projects was to get rid of some of them. So much to my surprise, when I was going through one of my boxes, I found the original Town of Innisfil urban design study and guidelines in one of my boxes. So I'd asked staff to copy it and give a copy to each person. So we all had the history of it. And I know Councillor Ices, when we were having this conversation and a long time ago, I think it was back in August, about like, how did this all come about? And you know, so this is the document that tells you that. And it talks about the process that we went through at that time, and also about the PowerPoints and the presentations that were made to the councils of the day. So the ones with intimate knowledge were really Councillor Pring from Ward 3 and Councillor Boyton from Ward 4, because they sat on all the steering committee groups. So they're the best ones to go to. But it was just so funny that when I was cleaning out drawers, I came across this document. And what was really funny is I think on about page 4, there's a picture of one of the big open houses that they had. And I'm quite certain that's a Mrs. Orsatti, long before she was ever Councillor Orsatti, at one of the open houses, which I thought was...
I attended every open house, Your Worship.
Yeah. Anyway, so a copy of that for everybody to have a look at. And for I'll give my copy to staff. So if other area residents kind of want to understand how this happened, we can have that that put forward for them. Councillor Orsatti.
One final request, a recorded vote on this item, please.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm going to Councillor Van Berkel.
Just one short comment, Your Worship, for Alex. It's a long way from Bellure to walk for coffee.
Thanks, everybody. And I really appreciate all of the work and the effort everybody has put into this. And I understand everybody's point of view. But I really think, I have to say that, I was so depressed after I listened to Mr. Stanley's delegation. Like, it made me want to move. Like, I just, that whole, other places are doing it right and we're doing it wrong. And I really do believe that, if we think we can, or if we think we can't, we're right. If we believe we can't succeed, then that's exactly where we'll end up. And I think we have to believe we can succeed and work towards the visions, both those that we come up with and those that our predecessors have come up with. And with that, I'll call the vote. Mr. Parkin.
Thank you, Worship. So I will read out the names. Our recorded vote sheets are randomized, so it'll be random order. And if you can say whether you're in favor or against when I call your name. Councillor Nicol.
Favor.
Deputy Mayor Davidson. Sorry, you're muted.
You did. Deputy Mayor, you're muted.
Has to rethink. Okay. In favor.
In favor. Councillor Orsatti.
Representing 7,000 residents, in favor.
Councillor Fowler.
In favor.
In favor. Councillor Ices.
In favor.
Mayor Dolan.
In favor.
Councillor Waters.
In favor.
Councillor Van Berkel.
In favor.
And Councillor Payne.
In favor.
That's unanimously carried.
It's carried. Thank you, everyone. The next item on our list was item D2, and it was brought forward by Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. You caught me off guard there. I was so elated by the vote. I completely forgot what I was going to say. It had to do with the, I believe, D2, which is the economic development. And I just had a few questions concerning a couple of items, and they relate to historical conversations we've had. And one happens to be, oh, sorry, I guess, do I need a seconder?
Yes.
On this? Okay, thank you, Bill. One was on Innisfil Heights in terms of being an economic opportunity. The area was enlarged to allow us to have more opportunities to make it worthwhile connecting that area to a common water sewage system. And I have not heard anything for a while about the request from many councillors to look into alternative wastewater treatment systems. And I think Deputy Mayor was interested. I think Councillor Van Berkel and myself were interested in these alternative opportunities. But I've heard hide nor hair of that economic opportunity there, because not only can we expand the area, but we can do it in an Innisfil way in terms of looking for innovative solutions. So, so that was my first question. And so I'd like to find out from there, are we still considering that? Is it, because I've heard nothing from in-services about this at all.
Yeah, I can certainly make some comments on that. So my simple answer is actually Brendan and myself, I don't know, maybe 9-12 months ago, out of a little bit of just frustration on the time frame that it's going to take, let alone the dollars to service, did a call for proposals. And we did get some responses. At the end of the day, they didn't really seem to be solutions. So, and maybe to the background, like I would say Brennan and I were biased towards that new technologies could work. So we were looking for solutions. And we did involve the folks at in-services. And at the end of the day, we were not successful. So that's not to say that there isn't a solution out there, or that we shouldn't be doing a full court press or something else. But we did do I'm going to suggest, a pretty honest effort, and we came up dry on that round. If you needed any follow-up, I could certainly pull up the files and revisit it. I'm a little rusty right now because it was about 12 or so months ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind following up on that, just because we did have one proposal in front of us, I think was from an associate of the Cortel Group. So, it would be interesting to see why they weren't interested, since they were the one who proposed it, not only for the Highway 400, but they're also interested in doing it for, I think, for the Churchill as well. So, so I would be interested in following up on that at a later time. My other question had to do with the economic development that the orbit brings to us. So there's all sorts of opportunities around the new commercial opportunities that the orbit brings. But I'm thinking of combining the opportunities there as well as the 400 lands in terms of a strategy of, if we're going to be going after sustainable green building design, is attracting those types of industries to those lands to supply what could be new building materials, new design concepts. I know in Singapore, they built the first prefab I think it was like a 60-story condo building. So they built the core, and then the boxes just fit into place all the way up, the same way they build cruise ships. And so I think there's a really value added opportunity here, that if we go ahead with the orbit and the sustainability initiatives, and we're working with a willing developer who's willing to entertain new technologies, new building practices, those types of things, that the 400 lands provide that. And I think it would be incumbent upon us to have some sort of strategy with the orbit to develop that type of industry locally, because not only if the orbit's successful and the industrial lands are successful built around it, then it becomes an opportunity to export those products throughout Ontario. And so I think it's a tremendous opportunity. Besides our IT kind of DMZ things that we're doing, I think this is a green initiative that we really need a strategy around, and I would put it in your lap to manage that for us.
Sure. Before you mention strategy, that seems to be the word of the day. Our CEO may smile just because we had a meeting earlier today. So it's interesting. So we actually have an orbit meeting tomorrow, and one of the key themes in our discussions about the orbit is the concept of sustainability, defining it, tying it into the development and giving it teeth. For probably over a year now, we've been talking about things like mass timber. The Cortel Group in particular have been talking about the linkage between the employment lands and the orbit and how that all fits together. So yeah, thank you for your input, Councillor Waters. I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to say, I'm not sure we were there yet. So maybe you've brought a bit of a focus or a lens to that. I can definitely see us putting together, a strategy that would tie in the lands, the orbit, sustainability, and how that all works together. So yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. CAO Rayner, did you have something to add?
Just very briefly, Your Worship, members of council, I know it's a late hour. Happy to follow up with Councillor Waters offline, but I just wanted to suggest to the councillor that it's an excuse, I guess, but it has been a global pandemic, and I would raise it tonight because as you prepare dutifully over the next few days for budget deliberations on Monday, this tension is a real one, and I want to encourage all council members to consider what is the want and the wish and the need. And I would argue, Councillor Waters, and agree with you, I know you and I have had a number of conversations, that the sustainability portfolio is a need, not a want. But it needs to be resourced, and it needs to be provided with the resources to make it happen. And just want all of council to consider that as you pour over your budget binders and as we head into a 0% discussion on Monday. Thank you, worship members of the council.
Thank you. Anything else, anyone? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote on that recommendation, which is to be received. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next is item F1, and that was Councillor Nicol.
Your Worship, Alex Waters is my seconder. Thank you. And just if I can speak to it real quickly.
Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. Respectful of the time of the debate that we put in today. It's been, but it seems like a bit of heavy lifting already. I think the report itself is pretty much self-explanatory. It is somewhat time sensitive as well. And I did have a slight recommendation or revision that Councillor Waters agreed to too, that we actually give staff direction on where to send this if it's passed with the support of the rest of council. The backstory is that Councillor Waters brought this to my attention over a week ago, and truthfully, if we didn't respond, we as a town could lose our voice and the power to protect our residents based on science. The province's plan, as proposed, would divide all communities, and each of their independent actions could have a detrimental impact to all of us in the entire area, both up and downstream. Without a united effort with all watersheds from elected officials appointed by their respective councils, this province could be in some real trouble. Mayor Dolan also often reminds us to remember which hat we were wearing, what seat we're at. Are we just representing the town of Innisfil, or as directors of a conservation authority, are we protecting the entire watershed and all of our provincial neighbors? Bill 229, as written with Section 6, would take away the ability to plan properly. It would create more delays in the process, and ultimately would give decisions after failed appeals to the minister. I think we need to send a strong message that we need science-based decisions from the conservation authorities and to protect our residents, as this is a vital service that we need to keep as a nonpartisan decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions or comments on the revised recommendation? I just need to ask the clerk, can we vote on that just in one piece?
Yes, I believe they were putting it forward as a revised recommendation as initially moved and seconded, so I think that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Parkin. Questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Councillor. So the rise recommendation now to return to council would be moved by Councillor Ices and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Next is consideration of all of the items that we, the resolutions that we passed, and that's moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Sadi. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, there's no notices of motion that I've been made aware of. I don't see any. Announcements, please. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure if everybody is aware. I've been pretty vocal over social media regarding an initiative I started in the beginning of November. As Movember started, as clear to see, I can't grow a stash or a goatee, but I've started an initiative to help support Child Lifeline Foundation. They help families in need when it comes to cancer and cost of medication, hospitals, the whole bit. Like, they're very, very well involved with the families for over 15 years now. I started out with a simple idea. If I raised $250, I shave my head. $500, I'd have my 9-year-old do it live on Facebook. And apparently, a lot of people want to see him shave my head because I'm up at 675. I have also had another friend challenge me, stating that if we reach 1,000, I lose the facial hair for the first time in a decade. So I just want to say to everybody who's given, big, small, in between, thank you. The results I've gotten so far has been astounding. I've tripled my bare minimum that I've ever asked. And we still got time till Monday evening, because Tuesday, this is going up. Let's see if the rest of this goes with it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other announcements? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Last Thursday, the South Simcoe Police Awards Night was held, and I kind of wasn't aware of it at the time because we were working, getting the harvest done, and I kind of glanced at my phone and saw that that evening had happened, and I guess it was a great night. I really miss doing it live like we did last year. And then on my Instagram feed, I saw that Constable Mark Hoving had been killed in the line of duty. And so I knew Mark personally. His brother worked on our farm, actually. And so it was quite a shock. And just talking about it, it's so heartbreaking for that family. And I just wanted to shout out to our South Simcoe policemen and all policemen who look after us so well, and thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you so much for those words, Councillor Ices. I know it's been very hard on the policing community, and of course for people who knew the family, and my condolences. I know that Chief Fletcher, I was with him most of the day today, and he was so proud of the turnout on the bridges as he was returned home to Little Current, and every bridge was covered, and not just with police, but with firefighters, with paramedics, and just with residents just turning out to pay their respects. And it was thank you for those words. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to do a shout out for our staff, because tonight in the pouring rain, Karen Shea brought me my plug that I can fix my computer so I can be here tonight and join in with the council meeting. I appreciate our staff so much, and they sometimes they get a really bad comments or whatever, but you know what? They've got a good heart, and they're really hardworking staff. So from me, I say thank you to all our staff at the town of Innisfil. I greatly appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. And with that, I would ask all of staff to please put on their videos if they so choose, because we do appreciate you all. Councillor Waters.
I want to thank the staff, but I want to say thank you to Council for vigorous debate on the intern control bylaw, and I'm glad it came down to not a divided vote, but a unanimous vote for the future in Innisfil. So I want to congratulate you all for listening, arguing hard, but in the end coming together for a common vision for a better Innisfil. So thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. Mr. Rayner, do you have any announcements for the good of the corporation?
No, thank you, Your Worship, members of council. We enjoy listening to the debate as well. And hopefully tonight clears up that you do direct the business of this corporation, despite the rumors. But this is a recorded vote, so I'm happy to remind anybody else who directs the corporation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did I see your hand, Councillor Asadi?
Thank you. Yes, and I just wanted to echo that as well, because you know, when all of us in council, we take these roles as a councillor, and I think anyone on council will say that this year or these 2 years here have been one of the toughest, and the workload and the pressure. There's a lot of, pandemic fatigue, even for us all across. But we enter this because we want to make a difference in our community. We have to face sometimes not the popular decisions, but the decisions that we think will better our community for everyone in the future. And they're not taken lightly. We struggle with them. And I wanted to thank the rest of council for that as well, for allowing me the latitude. And I apologize that I read out the 7,000 when I gave my recorded vote. It was just because I forgot to mention that I represent over 7,000 people in my ward. And that was a part of my consideration. But I want to thank all of council, because I appreciate being on this team. We may have difference of opinions, but we all care about about our community and where we live. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I think the biggest thank you we can give to our staff right now is letting them turn off their computer for a few hours. So announcements, unless there's anyone else that needs to, no, I'm not seeing any. So next we have the confirming bylaw, and that would be moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Asadi. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, adjournment, moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? And that is carried. I would say enjoy the evening, but it's almost over. So we'll see you soon, Council, with your budget books and your sleeves rolled up, and away we go on November the 30th. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Hey, guys.